Hey everyone, welcome back to the Paranormal M channel. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. And by the way, thank you so much for sending in your paranormal experiences. We truly appreciate all the love and support. That's why I'm always so happy to be here sharing these stories with you. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss an upload. Thanks again. Now, let's get into tonight's paranormal stories. Good night. So, when I was a kid, my sleep was honestly a mess. I don't remember a ton from those early years, but I do remember that nights were loud in my house because of me. I'd stay awake forever, wander the hallway, mutter whole conversations in my sleep, wake up crying from nightmares, the whole package. And apparently, I scared my mom half to death more than once because I had this habit of just appearing. Like, she'd be in the kitchen late, finishing dishes, and suddenly, there I was. A tiny 7-year-old in an oversized nightshirt, hair hanging in my face, standing perfectly still like I'd been summoned. At like 2 in the morning. Which, yeah, looking back, I get why that was unsettling. But the main thing I remember is the dream. From the time I was around 5 until I was maybe 8-ish, so a solid few years, I had the same dream almost every single night. I'm not exaggerating. Not often. Not a lot. I mean, it felt like it was on a schedule. My bed sat under this big front-facing window. 1-story house, my room right at the front. I used to keep the blinds cracked because I liked seeing the moonlight spill in. It made the room feel less closed in. And in the dream, I'd wake up in my bed and immediately know something was wrong. Like my stomach would drop before I even saw anything. Because outside my window, there it was. Not an animal, not a shadow, not a person. It was shaped kind of like a person, but way too tall. Tall enough that most of its body filled the window frame. Its skin was this weird, sickly color, like gray with a faint greenish tint. And it didn't have clothes on, just this smooth, bare body pressed up close to the glass. Its shoulders were nearly at the top of the window, and I could see the tops of its legs near the bottom, like it was towering right over my bed. Its hands were flattened against the window, fingers spread wide like it was bracing itself there. And then, the part that still makes my skin crawl even thinking about it, its neck wasn't normal. It stretched upward past the window frame, and then curved down, like it was looping back so its head could sit off to the side of its own body. Tilted there, almost casually, like it was posing. No hair. Huge pale eyes that looked almost silvery in the moonlight. A tiny nose that was basically just 2 slits. And this smile. This unreal, too big grin that pulled tight at the cheeks like it was stretching skin that didn't really want to stretch. The teeth were long and uneven and kind of needle thin, yellowed like old bone. The thing didn't move. It didn't blink. It didn't tap the glass or rattle the window or do anything dramatic. It just stared at me. Every night, I would lie there in the dream, frozen, staring back, and I'd get that awful feeling. Like if I moved or if I looked away, something would happen. And then I'd snap awake in absolute panic, heart hammering, sweaty, sometimes crying before I even knew I was awake. Here's the part that made it worse. I never told my parents. I don't even know why. I think I was afraid they'd laugh, or I'd get in trouble for being dramatic, or, honestly, I think some part of me didn't want to make it more real by saying it out loud. I tried to fix it myself. I started closing the blinds all the way before bed. But the dream didn't care. In the dream, the blinds were always open again. And then I'd wake up, actually wake up, and the blinds would be cracked the same way, like I'd never closed them at all. That detail messed with me even as a kid, because it made me feel like the dream was spilling into real life in tiny, impossible ways. Then one weekend, I stayed at my grandma's place, my Nana. Her name was Marisol. And for the first night in what felt like forever, I didn't have the dream. Later that day, I finally told her about it. Not with big dramatic details, more like I was embarrassed and trying to downplay it. But she listened in that way grandparents sometimes do, like she was taking me seriously, even if she didn't show it on her face. And then she went to this little dish on a shelf and picked up a tiny figurine, something small enough to fit in a child's palm. It was made of clay, painted in faded colors, like something handmade at a market. It wasn't fancy, just a little figure with rounded features, worn smooth at the edges like it had been handled a lot. She put it in my hand and told me, very simply, "Keep this by your bed tonight. You won't see that window visitor again." I remember the way she said it, not spooky, not theatrical, more like she was reminding me to bring a sweater. So that night, I set the figurine on the bedside table, and I never dreamed of that thing again. Not once. I still had messed up sleep after that. I still had night terrors. I still had the kind of nightmares that make you feel weird for a whole day afterward. But that specific creature, the too tall thing with the sideways head and the stretched grin, vanished like someone flipped a switch. I'm 24 now, and I still keep that little clay figurine on my nightstand. My sleep is still complicated. I'm an insomniac. I've dealt with sleep paralysis more times than I want to admit, and I've seen plenty of awful stuff in those moments. Your brain can produce some truly horrifying images when you can't move and you're stuck half dreaming. I've been prescribed different sleep meds over the years, but I never stay on them long because the side effects always end up being their own kind of nightmare. At this point, I'm weirdly good at functioning on very little sleep. Not proud of it, just used to it. But even with all of that, with all the other sleep-related weirdness I've had as an adult, I have never seen that creature again. And the wild thing is, those dreams are the clearest memories I have from my childhood. I can picture it perfectly. I can remember exactly what it felt like to lie there, stiff as a board, staring through the sliver of moonlight between my curtains. Mine were blue, with little stars on them, and feeling the silence like pressure on my ears. Just me, the window, and that thing not moving at all. I don't open my blinds at night anymore. I just don't. And I'm not even someone who goes around believing in the supernatural. I'm the type who hears a paranormal story and immediately starts thinking, okay, but was there black mold? Was there sleep deprivation? Is there a gas leak? I'm always looking for the normal explanation first. But this is the one thing I can't fully file away as just a dream. Because it happened too consistently, for too long, with too many little details that felt fixed. Like it wasn't my imagination remixing itself night to night. It was the same scene, the same presence, the same staring, like it was waiting for me. I don't know what it was. I'm not claiming it was some monster outside my childhood window. I just know it didn't feel like something ordinary. And honestly, even now, if I ever catch myself thinking, it was probably nothing, my hand still reaches over, almost automatically, to make sure that little clay figurine is right where it belongs. So this happened when I was 25, just after my partner Maya and I moved into our new place. And I should probably admit up front, I've had enough weird, paranormal-ish moments in different homes that I've kind of stopped being surprised when a house feels off. At this point, I've genuinely wondered if it's the buildings, or if it's just me bringing the strange along like extra luggage. But there's one detail that made this hit harder. I've always been a ridiculously deep sleeper. Like, when I was a kid, my family could have held a marching band in my room and I'd still be drooling on the pillow. Thunderstorms, sirens, didn't matter. But for some reason, movement wakes me up. Footsteps, shifts in the floor, that subtle someone is walking nearby feeling. My brain snaps right to attention. That part never changed, even as I got older. Anyway, First week in the house, maybe the second or third night, I wake up in the middle of the night to footsteps coming down the hallway. At first I'm like, Maya must be up. But I turn my head and she's right there beside me, completely out cold, breathing slow, dead asleep. So now I'm wide awake, but not fully, you know? That half-awake state where your mind is foggy, but your body is instantly tense. The footsteps keep coming, and our hallway is long, longer than it sounds like on paper. It's this narrow, dim stretch that runs from the bedroom toward the living room, and at night, it just turns into this single black tunnel. I'm staring into it, barely blinking, listening as the steps get closer and closer. Except, something doesn't add up. They sound like they're approaching the bedroom, but I'm not seeing anything. Not even a flicker of movement. No shadow shift, no shape, no change in the darkness. It's like the sound is advancing, but whoever, or whatever it is, isn't actually moving through space the way a normal person would. Now, a reasonable person might have grabbed their phone, turned on a light, checked the door, called out, something. Me? My exhausted brain decides the best plan is to stay perfectly still and just wait for the intruder to reveal themselves like I'm in some horror movie with no budget. So I'm frozen, staring into that hallway, listening. The footsteps get right up to the bedroom entrance. Then they stop. And I swear to you, I could feel someone standing just outside the door. Not like I heard them, like the air changed, like the darkness thickened. I'm holding my breath, ready to see a face, a silhouette, anything. And then, my absolute unit of a cat, Pudding, appears in the hallway right around where the footsteps stopped. Just materializes out of the dark like he owns the place. He looks directly at me, lets out this dramatic, offended little meow, and then strolls over like it's a normal midnight visit. Jumps right onto the bed, settles in, and I'm instantly furious. Relieved, but furious. I mutter something like, "Are you kidding me?" And I pass out almost immediately. The footsteps are gone. The whole feeling is gone. Like someone hit a switch. But here's the part that still bothers me. The next morning, when I'm more awake, it hits me. I know what my cats sound like. I've heard them trot, sprint, thump, slide around corners, all of it. And even though we'd only been there a few days, I'd already heard Pudding go up and down that hallway. Those footsteps weren't him. So yeah, maybe it was just my sleep-deprived brain. Maybe the house settling. Maybe acoustics. Maybe some weird combination of everything. But in the moment, in the dark, with those footsteps walking toward me without anything actually getting closer, it didn't feel like a cat. It felt like someone coming to my bedroom door. Hey, so my name's Riley, and what I'm about to tell you happened a little over a decade ago. Back in 2013, my family and I were living in this quiet house out in the country. 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a whole stretch of land that felt like it went on forever. It was one of those places that looked perfectly normal in the daylight, but at night, it carried this kind of someone's still here feeling you couldn't really explain. We weren't the first family to live there. Before us, the house belonged to a woman named Evelyn. From what my dad said, she'd bought the land years earlier and had the house built for herself and her kids, 2 boys and a daughter. Eventually, the kids grew up and moved far away, and Evelyn stayed. And she stayed. Even when she got older. Even when she got sick. And the sad part is, hardly anyone came to check on her. She passed away in that house in 2007, in her early 80s, alone. That detail stuck with me, because once you know that, the house feels different. Okay, so here's where things started getting weird. My little brother, his name was Mason, was about 8 at the time, and he had this old iPhone 4 he treated like treasure. He played it constantly. Little games like Angry Birds, Temple Run, stuff like that. He'd sit on this worn 3-seat couch in the living room and get totally locked in. One Sunday morning, we're rushing around getting ready for church. Mason's on the couch playing, and my stepmom calls out for him to go get dressed. He sets the phone down. He swears he did. Gets up, leaves the room. And here's the thing. Nobody else went into that living room. Not even for a second. A few minutes later, he comes back out, flops onto the couch, and the phone is gone. Just gone. We all did the usual stuff. Checked the couch cushions, looked under it, behind it, even inside the couch lining like we were detectives in a crime show. We tore the room apart, then the whole house. And this wasn't a messy house either. There weren't piles of stuff. There weren't 100 hiding spots. It was clean, open, nowhere for an iPhone to vanish into. And every single person in that house swore up and down they hadn't touched it. At first, we tried to be logical. Mason's a kid. Kids misplace things. Maybe it slipped somewhere stupid. So we gave up for the day, went to church, and figured it would show up eventually. Except it didn't. Not that day. Not the next day. Not even that week. Weeks passed. Then one Sunday, we come home from church again. The house has been locked, like always. We unlock the front door, step inside, and there it is. The iPhone. Sitting right behind the front door, on top of the little entry rug, like someone had placed it there on purpose. Not tossed, not dropped, placed. And when we picked it up and turned it on, my stomach went cold. It was still on the same screen Mason had left it on. Same game. And the battery, this is what always freaks me out. It was at the same charge level as when it went missing, like time hadn't moved for it at all. We all just stood there staring at it, because what do you even say? Nobody had been home. Nobody had a key besides us. There was no sign of a break-in. And even if there had been an intruder, why would they steal a kid's phone? Then quietly return it weeks later and set it down like a gift. That was the moment I started thinking about Evelyn. And honestly, that wasn't the only strange thing that happened in that house. Not long after that, I had my own little, okay, what was that moment? One night, I got in the shower. No music, no distractions. I remember setting my phone on the toilet tank, clear as day. I laid my towel and clothes on the closed toilet seat, like I always did. Showered for maybe 15 minutes. I step out, reach for my phone, and it's not on the tank. I check the counter, the floor, the trash, even peek into the sink like it somehow bounced in there. And then I lift my towel and clothes, and my phone is tucked underneath them, like someone slid it there while I was showering. And I just stood there, dripping wet, staring at it, because I know I didn't put it there. Then there was another time when my step-grandma, her name was Denise, came to visit. She wasn't forgetful, and she wasn't the type to leave a mess unless she planned to clean it later. She'd had her makeup spread out on the bathroom counter for a couple days, and that morning she was in a hurry. She did her face fast, grabbed her keys, and left to run errands. No one else was home. Everyone was at work or school. When she came back a few hours later, she went into the bathroom, and all her makeup was neatly organized and put back exactly the way it had been when she first arrived days earlier. Like the counter had been reset to day 1. She was genuinely shaken, not laughing, not confused, just unsettled. And that's the thing. None of these moments were huge on their own. No screaming shadows, no floating chairs. Just small, personal little shifts that made you feel like the house was paying attention. We had other things too. Lights that flickered when nobody touched the switch. TVs that turned on by themselves once or twice. Stuff you can explain away, until it happens enough times that your explanations start sounding like excuses. So sometimes I wonder, was it an intruder? Or was it Evelyn? Still attached to the place she built, still watching, still doing these tiny, almost gentle things like moving objects and putting things back where they belong? I don't know. But what I do know is this. That house didn't feel mean. It didn't feel dangerous. It felt occupied. Like someone was there, not to hurt us, just to make sure the home stayed a home. And after a while, the weird stuff faded. Like maybe whoever it was decided we were fine. Like the house finally let us keep it. Or like Evelyn finally moved on. Hey, so I'm gonna tell you this the way I'd tell a friend, because that's honestly how it feels. I'm 21, I'm from Brazil, and I'm sharing this here because I never really found a solid Brazilian space online where I could talk about this kind of thing without feeling weird. Also, if my English sounds a little off in places, just know I'm doing my best. So, some context. I didn't grow up in a super religious home. Like, God existed in the background, but it wasn't the center of our lives. Then when I was a teenager, my mom started changing. Not in a dramatic, joining a church every Sunday way, more like, she got serious. She began reading the Bible a lot, talking about God with this new intensity, becoming really careful about what she said and did. God-fearing, you know? And I got pulled into that too. Not because I was eager, more because I wanted to make her happy, and, honestly, because a part of me thought maybe it would help me. So I studied the Bible. I tried. I really tried. But the twist is, the more I studied, the more I felt myself slipping out of belief. It wasn't some rebellious phase. It was like my brain kept clicking into place in a way I didn't expect, and eventually I had to admit it. I didn't believe anymore. I called myself an atheist, but it wasn't peaceful at first. It was messy inside. I remember laying in bed and thinking, okay, God, if you're there, just give me something. One sign, anything. And I waited, and nothing happened. Fast forward a few years. I was 19, and I started dating this girl. Let's call her Luana. I fell for her hard, like embarrassingly hard. And she was religious, but not in the usual way people imagine. She practiced Umbanda, and if you've never heard of it, think of something in the same universe as Spiritism, except with rituals, with a terreiro, with spirits working through mediums. At first I was just curious, and if I'm being real, I also wanted to feel close to her world, because she talked about it with so much certainty. So I asked if I could go with her to a gira, the ritual gathering. I went, and I wasn't prepared for how it would feel, because the second I was there, it was like my whole body recognized something before my mind could explain it. I felt calm in a way I almost never feel. I had chills, like a current running up my spine. I remember thinking, this is going to sound dramatic, but I feel like I'm home. Now, me and Luana didn't last. And looking back, yeah, it had that love bombing pattern. Intense, fast, overwhelming, then suddenly confusing and painful. The relationship ended, but the religion stayed. And the deeper I got into it, the more things started happening around me, inside me. I found out I'm a medium. I started picking up presences, hearing things in that not quite a voice way, feeling energies shift. I began what people call spiritual development, and it changed how I see everything. And that's where the real story starts. One morning, my mom went out with my little brother, let's call him Rafa, and the house got quiet. I wasn't in the mood to do anything, so I decided to go back to sleep. I'm half asleep, facing the door, when I feel it. A presence. Not like a regular, someone walked into the room feeling. This was different, dense, heavy, like the air had thickened. My first instinct was to rationalize it. I told myself, it's probably my mom grabbing something. I kept my eyes closed because I was still sleepy, and I didn't want to deal with life yet, you know? But the feeling didn't pass. It got closer. And I remember thinking, still with my eyes shut, okay, why does this feel so wrong? And then, it did something. This is the part that makes my skin crawl even now. It felt like it leaned forward, like it was trying to see my face, like it was checking me. And then the mattress dipped, like a knee or a hand or something had pressed down on the edge of the bed. That's when the fear hit my chest like a weight. I didn't open my eyes. I couldn't. My body went into that frozen state where your brain is screaming but your muscles won't cooperate. All I could do was pray in my head, not to a Christian God, but to my guides. Like, please, help me, right now. And it got worse before it got better, because the presence felt like it lifted, like it was hovering above me. Not fully touching, but close enough that I could feel it in the air, in my skin. And the strangest detail is, it felt feminine. Not in a comforting way, just feminine, heavy, quiet, watching. It felt like forever, but it was probably seconds. And then, gone. Just like that. Like someone switched the room back on. The air cleared. The pressure vanished. And I just laid there, still afraid to move, listening to my own breathing like it was the only proof I was still alone. Later, at the next Jira, I worked up the courage to ask the entity who leads our house what that could have been. I expected to hear something scary. But she told me, very calmly, that it was likely my spirit guides, that visits can happen when you're developing, and that it's not uncommon for perception to be messy at first. Like your sensitivity is opening, but your mind still interprets it in the most terrifying way possible. And honestly, since then I've seen and felt a lot more. Enough that I can't just write it off as imagination. Also, my current girlfriend, Marina, is a medium too, and she picks up on things independently of me. So when stuff happens and we both notice the same shift, it's kind of hard to tell myself I'm making it up. So yeah, that morning still freaks me out to remember, but it also feels like the moment my spiritual life stopped being an idea and became something very, very real. And no, I'm not losing it. I mean, unless we both are. But then at least we're losing it together, right? Okay, so I'm gonna tell you something that still gives me chills. And I swear I'm not the type to jump at every little sound. I'm Maya. I'm 24 now, and I've worked at this place for a little over a year and a half. Almost 2 years. It's one of those jobs where the building is basically its own world at night. Quiet, fluorescent lights, long hallways, and you're working the graveyard shift. Like 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. kind of hours. When I first started, I felt totally fine there. Honestly, it felt safe. Normal. Nothing creepy. No weird vibes. Just work. And then one night, it was just me and my coworker Jules in the whole building. Like, just us. No officers walking around inside, nobody in the offices. We're sitting there doing our thing, and out of nowhere we hear this violent slam, like a door getting thrown shut. And not a little door. I'm talking one of those huge metal doors that you have to really yank and slam for it to latch. Jules and I just froze. We looked at each other like, did you hear that? Because there's no way we both imagined the same exact sound. We tried to be logical. We're like, okay, maybe an officer went back there. But the cameras in that section had been acting up, of course. So we rushed to the window we used to see down the hallway and we just watch. Nothing. No footsteps. No person walking out. No door opening again. No one. And we did that thing people always do, where you pretend you're fine and laugh it off. But we were not fine. We stayed in the same room together the rest of the night until closer to shift change, when other people finally started coming back around. After that, I was like, okay, weird, but whatever. Months go by, and one night I have to go grab something from the evidence room. Now, that room is already a little unsettling because it's dim. Like, there are lights, but it's not bright. It's that kind of lighting where you can see where you're going, but shadows still feel alive. I'm in there, doing my job, and I notice this glass display on the wall with all these old case photos and paperwork and stuff. And I'm nosy. I'll admit it. Curiosity absolutely got me. So I pulled out my phone and used the flashlight to look closer at the photos behind the glass. And it was one of those moments where you're fascinated, but also you feel like you're doing something you're not supposed to do. Like you're crossing an invisible line. I grabbed what I needed and left. Then later, I went back to return the items. And I don't know how to explain it except the second I got near that door, my body was like, no. My stomach dropped, my chest felt tight, and this anxiety hit me out of nowhere, like the room was warning me, like something inside it was aware I was coming back. Nothing happened. No sound, no movement, just that feeling. After that, things started happening in little pieces like breadcrumbs. Sometimes I'd hear voices in offices I knew were empty, muffled talking, like someone was having a conversation behind a closed door. I'd look, walk closer, and it would stop. And then there were the hallway moments. I'd catch a glimpse of what looked like a coworker, like a dark shape moving across the hall, someone turning a corner. And the second I looked directly, there would be nobody. It happened more than once, too. Enough times that it stopped feeling like my eyes playing tricks on me. But the worst night, the night that basically sealed it for me, started normal. My shift had just begun. I'm settling in, getting my stuff set up, and suddenly my coworker Ramon goes, "Who the hell is that?" And another coworker, Tess, goes, close the door right now." And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'm thinking, okay, if there's a random person in here, that's not haunted, that's dangerous. So I'm like, then go check. Ramon's an officer. He's armed, he's trained, and he just doesn't move. He goes, super calm. If she needs help, she can call over the radio. Like, what? And apparently there was another person already in that room they saw her go into. So Ramon's logic was basically, if it's real and it's an emergency, we'll hear about it. Everyone kind of drifted away, the previous shift left, and eventually it's late night quiet again. Just me and a couple other people who come and go for calls. Then it hits around 3 a.m. and my head is pounding. The lights feel too bright, so I switch some of them off to settle the headache, sit back down, and try to focus. That's when I hear the main entrance. Not like a faint sound, like the distinct noise that door makes. Heavy, unmistakable. My eyes snap to the monitor, the camera feed that shows the lobby. No one. No one in the lobby. No one walking in. No one heading to the restroom. Nothing. I wait because, logically, if someone came in, they'd show up somewhere. I'd see them. I'd hear the bathroom, a door, footsteps, anything. Nothing. And then I hear it again. Another slam, deeper in the building, behind my area. Again, big metal door. The kind you can't accidentally close. The kind that doesn't just drift shut because the AC kicked on. And the part that really got me? The coworker who usually works back there had left earlier. All the officers were out on a call. I was basically alone in that section of the building. I tried to act normal. I stared at my phone, looked at the computer, told myself I was fine. But I could not shake the feeling that someone was behind me. Not just, I'm scared, behind me. Like, that instinctual animal feeling of being watched. like you're prey and you don't know why you suddenly know it. So I finally stand up, turn more lights on, and I walk toward the kitchen area. And I see two cabinets, wide open, like someone had just gone in there. Both doors pulled open. My stomach dropped so hard I felt sick. I rushed back to my desk because my brain was like, if I sit down and pretend it's normal, it'll stop. Like it was a storm and I could wait it out. I'm sitting there, staring at the monitors again, trying to breathe. And then I felt it. Right behind my ear, like someone gently tugged my hair. Not a yank, just a light pull, like fingers catching a strand. I froze so hard I swear I forgot how to blink. And I heard something too. This sound that chair behind me makes when someone sits down and slowly turns. It's not loud, it's just specific. Like the wall gives this little crunching creak when weight shifts and the chair rotates. And it sounded exactly like someone sitting back there, turning slowly, facing me. I didn't turn around. I didn't move. I just sat there, staring at the screens, trying not to cry, trying not to convince myself I was losing it. When I finally built up the nerve to go back to the kitchen, because my shift was almost over and I couldn't leave those cabinets open, I walked over there with my heart in my throat. And the cabinets were closed. Both of them. Like I'd imagined the whole thing. Except I know what I saw. I had maybe 20 minutes left in my shift, and I did not tough it out. I asked an officer to stand with me, literally in the doorway, until it was time for me to leave. I took the next week off after that. And I'll tell you something weird. When I came back, it was quieter. Like whatever it was had said what it wanted to say. Or maybe I just desperately needed the break, and my brain was running on fumes. But even now, every once in a while, in certain parts of the building, I still get that feeling. Like I'm being watched. That place is haunted. And I swear, the night shift knows my name. So, let me start from the beginning, because I swear this sounds like something you'd hear on a podcast and roll your eyes at, until it's your life. The guy who owned our place before us, he was a pastor. Really nice, polite, the whole deal. When we were signing everything, he asked if we wanted to keep some of the decorations he put up. We were like, sure, why not? Saves us the trouble. What I didn't realize is that some decorations meant crosses. Everywhere. Like, not one or two. More like a dozen, scattered through the house like someone was keeping count. One of the guest bedrooms had 6 of them just on its own, and that's where my partner, Maya, finally drew the line. She took them down and packed them away, and I remember laughing and saying, okay, yeah, that's a bit much. And I'm not saying these things are connected. I'm not saying it either. But right after that, this place became a full-on money pit. Like pipes, wiring, some mystery leak that showed up out of nowhere. Just one thing after another. It added up fast. I kept telling myself it was just bad timing, but in the back of my mind, I couldn't help thinking, man, what if we offended something? We moved in about 10 months ago, and the layout is kind of weird. Our main bedroom is on one end of the house, and the other bedrooms are down the hall on the opposite side. It's not a huge place, but it's separated enough that the far side feels different. Like the air changes over there. And then came those 3 nights. 3 nights in a row, I crashed in one of the rooms on that other side. Not for any dramatic reason, just fell asleep there watching something, or I didn't want to wake Maya up, that kind of thing. But each night, it happened. I'd be half asleep, and suddenly there'd be this high ringing in my ears, like the world narrowed down to that sound. Then everything would feel heavy, like someone poured wet cement into the air. I tried to talk once, tried to call out to Maya, and I couldn't. Not even a little. My chest wouldn't work right. It wasn't like a nightmare where you feel stuck. This felt physical, like I literally couldn't pull air in. And the worst part was this pressure around my throat, like being held down. I remember thinking, this is it. This is how it ends. In my own house, in a spare bedroom, over something I can't even explain. The first 2 times, I stayed put afterward. I know how that sounds, but I was stubborn. I wanted it, whatever it was, to know I wasn't scared. Like, nice try, I'm not leaving. By the 3rd night, though, I'll be honest, I bailed. As soon as I could move again, I grabbed my pillow and went straight back to our bedroom like a kid running to their parents' room. After that, I kind of tested it. I'd step into those rooms during the day, hang out for a bit, wait for that heavy feeling. And nothing happened. Not like those nights, which almost made it worse because it was like it could choose when to show itself. And then there was this moment, broad daylight, when I walked in from outside and the whole house just felt wrong. I don't know how else to say it. The temperature felt off, like the air had teeth. Every hair on my arm stood straight up, and I froze in the entryway with my keys still in my hand, staring at nothing. I remember whispering out loud, okay, I'm just gonna go to the kitchen, like I was trying not to startle the house. A couple weeks later, we had Maya's cousin Ethan and his wife Rena come stay the night. We didn't even tell them much, didn't want to influence them, you know? I figured if we kept it casual, we'd get a real read on whether this was all in our heads. They slept on that far side of the house. Ethan told us he woke up and heard someone say, really clearly, "Hi there," like it was right near the bed. He thought it was Maya messing with him, until he remembered she was at the other end of the house. Then later, Rena, completely separate incident, said she heard, "What are you doing?" Not angry, not sweet, just present, like someone noticing her. They were both pale when they told us. No joking tone, no ha-ha spooky. Just that look people get when they've walked into something they can't explain. And then, this is the part that really got me. Maya admitted she'd had her own moment. She didn't want to tell me at first because she knew I was already freaked out. But she told me she woke up one night and felt that same pressure and that same thick, heavy air, like the room was crowded even though it was empty. So now I'm sitting here like, okay, it's not just me. It's not stress. It's not some weird sleep thing I'm inventing. I know the obvious answer is, get someone to bless the place. I know that. But here's my honest fear. What if that makes it worse? What if whatever's here takes it as a challenge? Like we're trying to push it out, and it pushes back harder. So right now, I'm doing this cautious, careful thing, keeping the lights on when I need to, not provoking anything, trying to act normal. But I'm also planning to put up cameras around the house. Not because I want proof for the internet or anything, just because I want to know what's happening when we're not looking. And yeah, you can call me crazy. I've called myself crazy, but I've never experienced anything like this before. Not once. And the weirdest part? It doesn't feel like a horror movie. It feels like something is living here with us, and it's letting us know it noticed we moved in. So, this happened back in the summer of 2015, during the school holidays. I was about 15, still at that age where you feel brave just because you're out with your friends, you know? Me and my mate Riley basically lived outside that summer. Our usual meeting spot was this little local church near our neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it had this big open car park and these wide steps out front, so it was perfect. You could sit around, mess about, talk rubbish, just be kids with nowhere else we needed to be. Riley slept over at my place the night before, and the next morning we decided to see who was out. We used my mom's old landline, the kind that always had a weird dial tone. and we rang a couple of our friends. Jade answers, all casual, and she goes, "Yeah, we're already out. We're at the church." So me and Riley are like, "All right, we're coming now." It's only about a 10-minute walk from my house. We head out, cut off the main road, and take this gravel path that leads straight to the church. I remember the sound of our shoes crunching on the stones, and the heat sitting heavy in the air like it does in summer. We get there, and it's empty. Like, proper empty. No cars, no people, no voices. The church doors are shut, the lights are off, and the whole place has that closed feeling, like it's not meant to be touched. Riley and I just stand there, looking at each other like, did we walk to the wrong universe or something? We check everywhere anyway. Car park, steps, around the side. Nothing. Not even a stray dog or someone walking by. So, being curious idiots, I walk up to one of the windows, cup my hands around my eyes, and try to peek inside. It's dark, quiet, still. And at that point, we're annoyed more than scared, because we're thinking our friends are messing with us. So we're like, fine, we'll go back and call again. But here's the thing. Just as we're about to turn around and head back down the gravel path, we hear it. Behind the church, somewhere out of sight, this voice rises up. A woman's voice, clear and soft and honestly beautiful. Not like someone shouting, more like this long, melodic sound, almost like singing, but not a song I recognized. It felt weirdly close and loud, like it was meant to be heard. Riley and I froze, like our bodies made the decision before our brains did. We just stared at each other, wide-eyed. And then, no discussion, no, should we run? We ran. Full sprint down that gravel path like something was chasing us, like really chasing us. We get back to my mom's house, both out of breath, and we grab the landline again. I call Jade back and I'm like, "Where were you? We just went to the church. There was nobody there." And she goes, "What do you mean? We're still here. We haven't moved. We haven't seen you." That made my stomach drop, because it wasn't just that the church was empty. It was that they were insisting they'd been there the whole time. So we tell them, "Stay there. Don't go anywhere." And me and Riley practically race back. And when we reach the church the second time, it's like we've stepped into a different day. There are cars filling up the car park. The lights are on. The doors are open. There's an event happening. People laughing, talking, moving in and out. You can hear that busy, echoey church noise, like chairs scraping and someone calling out to someone else. Me and Riley just slow to a walk, completely stunned, trying to make our brains catch up. We find our friends on the steps like nothing ever happened. And I remember blurting out, "How long has the church been open?" "Since the morning." Riley and I didn't even know what to say after that, because it wasn't like we'd imagined it. We'd both seen the same empty church, the same dark windows, the same silent car park, and we'd both heard that voice. And the creepiest part is, we still talk about it sometimes. I'm 26 now and I still speak to Riley, and every once in a while one of us will bring it up like, "Do you remember that day?" And we'll sit there, trying to explain it, and we never can. We just know what we saw, and we know what we heard. So, okay. This is one of those stories where I still don't have a neat explanation, and I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. I just want to tell you what happened, exactly how it felt in the moment. This was a few months back, honestly, somewhere between like 2 and 5 months ago. I'm in North Carolina, and it was one of those evenings where it's not super late, but it's dark enough that the windows feel like black mirrors. Everyone in my house was home, my mom, my stepdad, and my sister, but we were all doing our own thing. I remember my mom had some show absolutely booming upstairs, like full volume, you know? And I was downstairs alone, just doing a very normal, boring thing. I threw a frozen meal in the microwave because I didn't feel like cooking. We have 4 dogs. 2 of them are basically glued to my parents most of the time. They're spoiled and they know it. That night, I noticed 2 of the dogs weren't upstairs where they usually are. I saw them downstairs instead, kind of hovering and looking at me like, well, are we going out or not? So I did the usual little phrase they understand, something like, want to go outside? And they immediately perked up, tails going, all excited like it was the best idea anyone had ever had. I opened the back door and let those 2 dogs out. Now, my backyard is set up where you've got a small porch area, and then the yard slopes down pretty far. So once the dogs trot past the edge of the porch, you usually can't see them anymore. They'll do their business down the slope, sniff around, and eventually come back up when they're done. Sometimes you have to call them because they get distracted. So the microwave finishes, I grab my food, and I realize it's been a little while. Like 5 minutes, maybe closer to 7. And I'm standing there with my dinner thinking, seriously? Please come back inside. I just want to eat and go back to my room. We have a light by the back door, and the way it works is the yard beyond it is basically just darkness. So I'm waiting for them to appear out of the shadows into that little circle of light, like they usually do. While I'm waiting, I sit at the kitchen table because it's right next to the glass door. I start eating, half watching the yard, half just zoning out. Then something happens that I remember so clearly because it's like the whole house shifted. Upstairs, the loud show suddenly stops, like someone paused it. Total quiet. And a second later, I hear my stepdad open his door, and then I hear pause. A lot of pause. I look toward the stairs and all 4 dogs come barreling down, like full excitement mode, running ahead of him, basically tripping over each other, acting like they urgently need to go outside. All 4. I just froze with my fork halfway to my mouth, because I had just let 2 dogs outside. I saw them. I watched them go into the yard. I waited for them to come back. I was annoyed at them for taking so long. But now I'm looking at the staircase and I can see all 4 dogs, as clear as day, crowding around my stepdad as he comes downstairs. No missing dogs. No, oh, one of them was outside already. No, all 4 were indoors, right there, and they're acting like they haven't been out yet. And then he walks right past me, like nothing weird is happening, and opens the back door and lets all 4 dogs out, right in front of me. I don't even think I said anything. I think my brain just stalled out, like it couldn't decide what reality it was in, because the only thought I could land on was, what did I let outside? And the creepy part is, once that thought hit, everything else suddenly felt worse. Like, of course whatever I let out didn't come back. That would explain why I sat there waiting and never saw anything return to the door. I'm into spooky stuff. I watch paranormal videos sometimes. I think it's interesting, but I'm also pretty skeptical. I'm not someone who's constantly seeing ghosts in the corner of my eye or anything. And I don't drink, I don't do drugs. I wasn't sleep deprived or in some weird state. It was just a normal evening. But I swear to you, I let out 2 dogs. And I swear to you, a few minutes later, those same dogs were upstairs and came running down with the other 2 like they'd never gone out at all. I told my sister later and she basically laughed and told me I was being dramatic. My parents thought it was funny in a creepy campfire story way, but nobody really took it seriously. And honestly, I'm not saying it was a shapeshifter or a spirit or anything like that. I'm just saying I don't have an explanation that fits what I saw. So yeah, that's it. That's my weird little, not super flashy story that still makes my stomach drop when I replay it. And if you've ever had something like this happen, Something small but impossible. Please tell me, because I'd really like to know I'm not the only one. So, this happened a couple nights ago, and I still feel kind of stupid saying it out loud, but I can't shake it. Me and my partner, Maya, were staying at my aunt and uncle's place for the weekend, just helping out while they were away, watching their 2 dogs. We brought our own dog too, so the house felt like this little temporary zoo. Their place is tucked way back off the road, surrounded by trees, the kind of quiet where you can hear your own thoughts a little too clearly. And it has so many windows, like an unreasonable amount. At night, it feels like the house is made of glass. It was late, maybe around 1 a.m., and I stepped outside to let the dogs out into the yard. I remember thinking everything felt normal. Cold air, porch light buzzing, dogs doing their little business. And then all 3 of them just stopped. Not in a playful way, not in a, "What's that?" curious way. They went dead still, like someone hit pause. No sniffing, no wandering, no barking, just staring into the trees like they were watching something move between the trunks. I turned to look, expecting maybe a deer or a raccoon or whatever, but I didn't see anything. Just darkness and branches shifting in the wind. But when I turned back toward the house, I caught something in the reflection of the porch light on the kitchen window. And it wasn't me. There was a shape behind the glass, not pressed up against it or anything dramatic, just standing there inside the kitchen, mostly swallowed by the dark, like it had been there the whole time, like it had been watching me from the other side. I swear my stomach dropped. I rushed inside so fast I almost tripped over the dogs, heart hammering like I'd run a mile. The kitchen was empty, but every cabinet door was open. Every single one. Top cabinets, bottom cabinets, just hanging open like someone had gone through them in a hurry. And the weirdest part was, I hadn't heard anything. No banging, no swinging doors, no clatter. Just open. Like the house had done it quietly on purpose. Maya came down the stairs half asleep, asking what was going on, and I, like an idiot, said something about maybe seeing an animal outside. A raccoon, a cat, whatever. I could tell she didn't fully buy it, but she didn't argue either. She just looked past me into the dark kitchen for a second, then went back upstairs. After that, I couldn't sleep. I just lay there listening to the house settle and creak the way old houses do, trying to tell myself it was nothing. Then, sometime around 3:20 a.m., all the dogs sat up at the exact same time. Not barking, not whining, just sitting upright, stiff, eyes locked on the hallway like they were waiting for something to appear. And then I heard it. One slow floorboard creak, right outside the guest room door. And here's the detail that makes my skin prickle. Earlier that night, I'd dropped a towel in that hallway. It was still damp because I'd used it to wipe the dog's paws. I didn't move. I barely breathed. I just listened, staring at the dark like my eyes could force something to reveal itself. Morning comes, finally. Light filling the house, birds outside, all of it pretending everything was fine. I went to the hallway and checked. The towel was folded, like neatly folded. Still damp too, so it hadn't been replaced. It was the same towel. And the fold was specific. My aunt has this weird way of folding towels, like a tidy triple fold that looks almost too perfect. And that's exactly what it looked like. Except she wasn't home, and Maya, she started leaving the hallway light on that night. She didn't explain it. I didn't ask. It just felt like something had been in the house. Or still was. And I wasn't even going to tell anyone this, honestly. I hate being that person. but I'm typing this right now because something else happened literally a few minutes ago. I heard the same creak again. Same spot. Same slow, deliberate sound outside the guest room. So I got up and checked. The towel wasn't folded anymore. It was laid out flat, like someone had smoothed it down with both hands, completely spread out across the floor, soaking wet. And beside it, right next to the edge, there were 2 wet footprints. Bare feet, just standing there like whoever made them had paused for a second and then stepped away into the hallway. So, I don't tell this story at parties because it's the kind of thing that makes people go quiet and glance over your shoulder. My parents split when I was little, about 4, and my mom moved us into this old house that felt like it still remembered the 1800s. It was one of those places that looked charming from the outside, but once you were in it, you couldn't shake the sense that it had rules you didn't understand. We lived there with my brother Hugo, my baby sister Lila, she was still tiny, toddler age, and my stepdad Mark. The house was bigger than anything we'd lived in before. 2 floors, creaky stairs, long hallways that swallowed sound. Upstairs, right at the top of the stairs, there was a room to the right, then another room further down, then a little stretch with the bathroom, and past that, this narrow hallway that led to one bedroom that felt separate from everything, like it was tucked away on purpose. And every bedroom had this massive wardrobe, old, heavy wood, the kind that smells like dust and varnish. My mom said they'd come with the house, bought from someone a little odd, which is her polite way of saying there was a story there and she didn't want to tell it. Oh, and a detail that didn't seem important until later. We found out the house used to belong to an old postman, and he died there. Peacefully, apparently. Natural causes. Still, it sat in my head like a pebble in a shoe. Anyway, let me go in order. The first thing I can't explain happened when I was 5. Hugo and I shared a big upstairs room, bunk bed, toys everywhere, and this storage space behind us that made the room feel even deeper, like it went back farther than it should. I slept on the bottom bunk. One night, I shot awake, like the kind of waking where your body knows something before your brain catches up. Cold sweat, heart sprinting, and there was pressure on me. Someone's hand over my mouth, holding me down. I couldn't breathe properly, couldn't shout, couldn't move my legs. I remember thinking, I'm small, I can't get out of this. But I panicked so hard my arm just swung. I flung it backward and hit something solid, and I heard it, this unmistakable sound of a body stumbling and hitting the floor. I screamed. My mom came running in. She was pregnant at the time, and Mark was right behind her. Lights on, chaos, Hugo waking up crying. And there was no one. No footprint, no shadow, no explanation. Just me shaking and my mom trying to calm me down with that tight voice adults use when they're scared but refusing to show it. A couple years later, 7 or 8, I moved into that far bedroom. The isolated one. The private one. Worst idea of my childhood. That room had a door that led to the attic, and for weeks I kept saying someone was trying to open my bedroom door at night. My mom thought I was having nightmares, until later, we found out there had been people squatting up there at some point. Even after that was dealt with, the room never felt normal. It had this heavy feeling, like the air was always a little too still. Friends would come over, friends who weren't religious, friends who rolled their eyes at ghost stories, and they'd step into the doorway and kind of pause, like their bodies hesitated without them choosing to. I couldn't fall asleep in silence. I always needed background noise, videos, music, anything, because the moment it got quiet, I'd hear things. Soft whispers I couldn't make out, little clicks, the kind of sound you hear when someone shifts their weight in the dark. And the worst part was the feeling, that steady, prickling certainty that I wasn't alone, even when I was. I know how that sounds, I do, but I saw it. Fingers curling around the edge of the door like someone was peeking out. The skin looked bluish, like the hand had been cold for a long time, like it didn't belong to someone living. I didn't even think. I screamed and ran so fast I almost slipped on the hallway floorboards. Another night, I woke up on my side and felt the mattress dip, like someone had laid down behind me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of a body through the blanket. I whipped around. Nothing. No one. Just this clear indentation in the bed, like something had been there a second ago and decided it didn't want to be seen. One of my mom's friends came by once. This woman named Claire, who was calm about everything, the type who laughs when other people jump at loud noises. She walked up the stairs with my mom, and when they got to my door, she stopped dead, like she'd hit a wall. She stared into my room and said, "I'm not going in there. I can't. It feels wrong." Thanks, Claire. Really helpful. But the night I still replay in my head happened on a random weekday. I was trying to fall asleep, background noise low, eyes burning from exhaustion, and I heard someone start up the stairs. I relaxed at first. Mark was usually the one who came up late, and his room was right at the top of the stairs on the right. The footsteps reached the landing, and then they didn't turn into his room. They kept going, past the bathroom, down that short hallway, toward my door. Every hair on my arms lifted. I jumped up and pressed myself against the door, like my body could become a lock. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely grip the handle. And then something on the other side tapped. Not banging, not trying to break in, just a gentle, patient tapping, like it knew I was right there, like it was enjoying the fact that I was listening. I cried until my throat hurt. I remember whispering, "Go away," like that would matter. No one believed me the next day. Not really. They thought I was imaginative, sensitive, dramatic. Every night after that, I'd end up at my mom's door, begging to sleep on the floor beside her bed, convinced that if I stayed in my room, whatever it was would finally decide to do something worse. Then there was the day it copied my mom's voice. I was around 10, sick enough that I stayed home while everyone else went out for a walk. Hugo had this upstairs room with a couch and a TV, so I curled up there with a YouTube video playing and a blanket pulled up to my chin. About an hour in, I heard the front door slam downstairs. Then my mom's voice, clear as anything. "We're back!" I even heard Lila giggling, that little toddler laugh that sounds like bubbles. I was sweaty and tired and didn't want to move, so I thought, I'll go down in a minute. Half an hour later, I heard it again. The front door. The same slam. My mom's voice, same tone, same rhythm. "We're back!" My stomach turned to ice. I sat up so fast my head spun. And when I finally went downstairs, my mom was just coming in for real, coat half off, Mark carrying bags, Lila babbling. I said, "Didn't you already come back earlier?" She stared at me, confused, and went, "No, we just got home. Are you okay?" Later, she admitted that, during the walk, she'd gotten this sudden, awful feeling, like something was wrong at the house. So they'd rushed back sooner than they planned. I still think about that, about how perfectly it sounded like her, about what might have happened if I'd gone downstairs the first time. There was a tiny grocery shop right next door, and one day Mark asked me to watch Lila while he ran out for a couple minutes. Easy. She was playing in the living room while I sat nearby, half watching her, half watching TV. Across from the living room, there was this door that had been sealed shut, painted over, never used. Lila suddenly went quiet, turned her head like she'd heard someone call her. Then she stood up, walked straight to that sealed door, pointed, and said, plain as day, "Who's that man?" I swear my blood ran cold. I didn't even want to ask her what she meant. I just wanted Mark to come back. Other people noticed things too. A friend told me she heard whispering behind my wardrobe while I was asleep. Another friend was on a call with me once, and when I went downstairs to grab water, she said she heard footsteps moving around in my room. Slow, like someone pacing. We moved out after my first year of middle school. And you know what's wild? For a long time I tried to convince myself it was all stress, or nightmares, or my brain making patterns out of fear. Then, about a year ago, Hugo admitted something to me. He said he used to have constant nightmares in that house, always about an old man. The same kind of old man Lila described. He'd heard things too. Once, he even heard my voice calling him when I wasn't home. But he never said anything back then, because he didn't want to look scared. And hearing him say it was like something unclenched in me. Because for years, I'd carried this worry that I'd invented it all. That I'd been the weird kid who made things up. I didn't make it up. I was just terrified. And I'll tell you something that sounds small, but isn't. I still can't have a wardrobe in my room. I know it's irrational. I know it's just furniture. But every time I see one, tall, dark, doors that open into shadow, my brain goes right back to that bluish hand curling out of the wood. And I'm 10 years old again, listening to someone downstairs say, "We're back," when no one is home. Hey, so I've been sitting on this for a while, and I still don't really know what to make of it. I'm sharing it the way it was told to me, because if someone out there has dealt with anything like this, or knows how to make it stop, I'd honestly love to hear from you. This isn't even my story, technically. It's my friend's. She's 16, and I'll call her Riley. I've known her forever, and she's not the type to invent things for attention. If anything, she tries to downplay stuff so nobody worries. Riley lives maybe 15 minutes from me, in a pretty normal, busy neighborhood. Schools nearby, families, traffic, the whole thing. Nothing about the area screams creepy. Her grandpa actually built their house himself, which always felt kind of sweet to me. It's been in the family a long time. A couple family members have passed away in the house over the years, but nothing suspicious. Just normal, sad life kind of stuff. The first weird thing was her dog. And I know how that sounds, but listen, this dog is ridiculously gentle. Like not an aggressive bone in her body. Riley swears she'd never heard her growl at anyone or anything before. But one night, this was around late December 2024, during winter break, her dog started growling at the end of Riley's bed. Just staring at the foot of the bed like something was standing there. Low, steady growl. Not playful, not protective. More like warning. Riley kind of brushed it off. She was like, okay, maybe she heard a noise, and tried to move on. Then months later, around spring break, it started again, only more often. I was actually on the phone with her one of those times. Her parents were out, and it was just her and her older brother in the house. Mid-conversation, the dog starts growling again. Riley's trying to laugh it off, but I could hear it in her voice. She was unsettled. After that, the dog got stuck on the bathroom. For a few days straight, the dog would walk up to the bathroom doorway and just freeze. She wouldn't step inside. She would just stare into it and growl, like the room had something in it she didn't want to cross. Riley even tried calling her in with treats. Nothing. The dog wouldn't do it. And then Riley had this dream. She described it like it wasn't a normal dream at all, like it had weight, like her body remembered it afterward. In the dream, her mom was standing near the bathroom, talking to someone Riley couldn't see at first, like she was having a calm conversation with a person who didn't belong there. Then her mom called Riley over, like it was totally normal. When Riley got closer, she saw a woman standing just outside the bathroom. Average height, simple white dress, nothing fancy, just plain. Her hair was shoulder length but hacked up, uneven, like someone had cut it in a hurry or in anger. The woman was facing the bathroom, not inside it, but right beside the door. Riley tried to speak to her. No answer. She kept trying, louder, more desperate, and the woman didn't react. Riley couldn't see her face either. It was like the dream refused to show her. Even when the woman shifted, it stayed hidden, like a blur or a shadow where her features should have been. Then the woman reached out and put a hand on Riley's shoulder. When she woke up, there was nothing there. No injury. Just that gross, lingering feeling like, why do I still feel this? For a while after that, things calmed down. Not totally, but enough that Riley was trying to convince herself it was all stress or coincidence. And then came the thing she still can't explain. This happened one afternoon when she was sitting on the couch. The dog starts growling again, same as always, but this time she's staring down the hallway, like laser-focused, hackles up, the kind of stare that makes your stomach drop because you realize the animal is reacting to something you can't see. Riley stood up and leaned into the hallway to look. Nothing. Just the normal dim light and doors. But then she noticed something behind her bedroom door, like the door was slightly open and something was peeking from the gap. She described the face in a way that still makes my skin crawl. Not like a normal face at all. More like stretched and rounded, kind of squashed, like the shape of a gourd. No expression, just staring. And Riley said the worst part wasn't even the face. It was that she couldn't move. Like her body forgot how. Like she was stuck standing there, staring back, heart pounding, trying to force her legs to work, and they just wouldn't. And then she blinked, and it was gone. No sound, no footsteps, no door moving, just gone, like it had never been there. She didn't tell her parents right away. She didn't want to sound dramatic. And honestly, I don't think she wanted it to become real by saying it out loud. But after that, little things started stacking up again, especially once summer hit. Her dad started mentioning that he'd hear someone calling from another room, like Riley's voice, faintly. Like she'd be upstairs and he'd hear, "Dad?" from the hallway. But Riley wouldn't be there. Sometimes she'd be sitting right next to him when he heard it. And then there was the whisper. Riley told me she was about to walk past the bathroom, and someone whispered right into her ear, clear as day, "Hey." She thought it was her dad messing with her, like he was behind her trying to scare her. But when she turned, the lights were off, and both her parents were asleep in their room. Her brother basically lives in the basement and never comes up unless he has to, so it wasn't him either. After that, the dog refused to go down the hallway at all, like full stop. She'd plant her feet and pull back, like the hallway was a boundary line. And she stopped sleeping in Riley's room too, even though she used to love curling up there. So yeah, that's where things are at. And here's the one extra detail that makes it even harder to shrug off. Apparently the neighbors who lived next door years ago were into ritual stuff. Like, not candles and vibes, but actual rituals. That's what Riley's family heard, at least. I don't know what was true and what was rumor, but it's the only reason we can even grasp at right now. We're trying not to spiral. We keep telling ourselves we might be overthinking it, that it could be stress, dreams, old house noises, the dog reacting to something normal. But it doesn't feel normal. So if anyone's been through something like this, or knows what it means when a dog refuses a hallway and a bathroom feels like a dead zone, I'm listening. Because right now we're stuck between this is nothing and this is something. And that space is honestly the creepiest part. So, I've gone back and forth about telling anyone this for a long time, mostly because it sounds like something you'd hear around a campfire and roll your eyes at. Except it happened, and my family still shuts down the second I even hint at it. It was the summer of 1999, and my cousin Haruto went missing. He was 7, I was 11. We were staying at my grandparents' place out in the countryside, outside Fukui, not the city, the real quiet part where the roads are narrow and the nights are so dark you can feel them. Their house was old in that way you can't fake. Sliding paper doors, tatami rooms that smelled faintly of straw and sun-warmed wood, a little shrine corner with offerings, and fields stretching out behind the property like an endless green sheet. Past the fields there was a thin line of trees, more of a wooded strip than a forest, but enough to make the wind sound like whispering when it moved through. One afternoon, Haruto and I were playing hide-and-seek around the yard. I remember counting with my face turned toward this rusted metal water pump by the side of the house, calling out numbers way too loud, like I was daring him to be brave. He giggled, this sharp, bright laugh, and took off toward the back, shoes slapping the packed dirt. At first, it was normal. That's the thing. There wasn't any ominous feeling, no warning. Just summer air, cicadas, and the kind of boredom kids feel when they've been in the same place for too many days. Then, time kept passing. 5 minutes, 10, 15. I stopped counting and started calling his name, thinking he was just being stubborn. I walked around the house, checked the shed, peeked behind the rice straw bundles stacked under the eaves. Nothing. My stomach got tight in that way it does when you're a kid and you realize, oh, this might actually be real. And then I found him. He was crouched near the back edge of the property, behind this low stone boundary wall that was half swallowed by weeds. He looked wrong, like the color had drained out of him. His little hands were trembling so hard his fingers kept flexing open and closed, like he didn't know what to do with them. I said his name again, soft this time, and asked what he was doing. He didn't answer right away. He just stared past me, toward the fields, toward the trees beyond them. And then he leaned in and whispered, like the words hurt to say, "She's too tall." I actually laughed at first, not because I thought it was funny, but because my brain didn't have any other place to put it. Kids make things up. Kids scare themselves. That's what I told myself. But he wouldn't stand up unless I grabbed his hand. And even then, walking back, he kept looking over his shoulder, quick little jerks of his head, like something was following us at a distance he couldn't measure. That night, my grandmother noticed immediately. She was usually gentle, always slipping us extra fruit, always smoothing our hair when she thought we were sleepy. But when she found out Haruto had gone near the back wall, near the trees, her whole face changed. It wasn't just anger, it was fear, sharp and clean, like a blade. She didn't yell for long. She went quiet. And then she made us do something I'd never experienced before. She filled the bath with hot water and poured in a thick handful of salt until it clouded and stung my nose. She made us soak, even when we complained. After that, she took out these paper charms, talismans, with dark ink and little brush marks, and she started sticking them around the room. On the door frame, on the window edges, even tucked into the corner where the ceiling met the wall, like she was patching holes you couldn't see. I asked her what was happening. She didn't explain. She only said a name, quiet, like saying it too loudly might invite it closer. Hachishaku-sama. I didn't understand it then. I do now. That night, I woke up because I heard Haruto making this small, broken sound, half sob, half breath. I sat up, still tangled in the futon, and saw him standing by the window. Just standing there, stiff as a doll. I whispered his name, telling him to come back, but he didn't move. So I got up and went to pull him away, and that's when I saw it outside. At first, I thought it was the moon catching something pale, but then my eyes adjusted. There was a wide, white hat just above the hedge line, too high to make sense, and beneath it, the suggestion of a face. Not right. Not like an old woman's face, not like a mask either. It looked unfinished, like someone tried to shape features and gave up halfway through. The eyes seemed too far apart, the mouth too stretched, and the skin had this dull, empty quality, like wax that had never been warmed by a human life. And her neck. Her neck was bent at an angle, like she had to tilt her head to fit under the roofline. She was watching Haruto. Not the house, not me, him. I don't remember deciding to move. I just grabbed him, harder than I meant to, and dragged him down into the futon with me. I pulled the blanket over both our heads, like that thin fabric could hide us from something that didn't belong in the world. Haruto was shaking so violently his teeth clicked. We stayed like that for, I don't know, minutes? Hours? I remember hearing my own heartbeat in my ears. I remember the air getting hot and damp under the blanket. Eventually, the gray light of morning seeped in. When we finally looked, she was gone. My grandmother didn't act surprised. That's what haunts me most. The way she moved like this was something she'd been afraid of her whole life. By late morning, she'd called someone, an older local priest from a nearby temple. He arrived with a bag of things, folded paper charms, a little bottle of sake, and a string of beads he kept running through his fingers as he spoke to my grandparents in a low voice. He walked the perimeter of the house, chanting, placing paper strips at corners, tapping the frames of doors and windows like he was checking for weak points. He poured sake at the edges of the property, just small splashes, like an offering. I stood behind my grandfather and listened, trying to catch meaning where I could. At one point, the priest looked directly at Haruto and said something that made the room feel colder. Haruto had been noticed, and once she chooses someone, once she's seen them, she doesn't stop. For 2 days they kept him inside, curtains pinned shut, doors sealed with charms. No stepping into the yard, not even for a minute. My grandmother slept near our room with a small lantern lit, like light itself was a kind of defense. It almost worked well enough that a part of me started to believe it was all going to fade into one of those scary childhood memories you eventually laugh about. And then came the third night. I don't remember waking up. I remember waking to quiet, the kind of quiet that feels wrong because you realize you're hearing it too late. Haruto's futon was empty. The window was still closed. The paper charms were still stuck in place. The doors hadn't been opened. The house hadn't creaked the way it does when someone walks down the hall. There were no footprints in the dirt outside. No broken latch. No torn screen. Nothing you could point to and say, "Here, this is how it happened." That sound, faint at first, then clearer as my grandfather stepped out onto the porch and stared toward the fields. "Po, po, po." Low, slow, almost playful, echoing out near the edge of the trees. The police searched. Of course they did. For days, then weeks. People came with flashlights and dogs and long poles to poke through irrigation ditches. Neighbors talked. Rumors spread. Some said kidnapping. Some said he wandered off and drowned in a canal. My grandfather told everyone it had to be a person, a man, a stranger. But when he said it, his eyes wouldn't look at my grandmother. And my grandmother, she just kept lighting incense. We never found Haruto. Even now, when I visit, his photo is still there on a high shelf in the main room, faded at the edges from years of smoke. Fresh incense is always burning beside it, even when no one is home, like the house is still holding its breath. And sometimes, this is the part I almost never say out loud. When the wind is right, and I'm outside at night, I swear I can hear something drifting over the fields. Not a voice exactly, just that soft, steady sound, like someone calling in a way only one person is meant to understand. Oh. 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 Okay, so this happened a little over a week ago, right after I moved into this tiny apartment across town. It was one of those, I just need somewhere safe to land places. Cheap, quiet, mostly clean, and honestly, after the breakup, I didn't care if the walls were paper thin as long as I could sleep. Except, I didn't. The first night, I'm lying there in the dark, and I get that feeling. You know the one. Like the air changes. Like the room goes too still, and your skin starts buzzing. Almost like your body knows something your brain hasn't caught up to yet. I told myself I was just rattled. New place, new noises. My nerves still fried from everything that happened with Evan. So I flicked on my lamp, did a quick scan. Chair, dresser, closet door, the little stack of unpacked boxes, and nothing. Just shadows doing what shadows do. I turn the lamp off again, try to relax, and the feeling stays. The next night was worse, like embarrassingly worse. The second I turned off the lights and laid my head down, I had this stupid, unavoidable urge to look under the bed. And I'm not talking about a quick glance like, haha, monsters. I mean, I felt compelled, like my body was being pulled toward it. So I lean over, heart thumping, and I look. Nothing. Dust bunnies, a crumpled receipt, one lonely sneaker I thought I'd lost in the move. I actually laughed out loud, quietly, because it felt ridiculous, and I started to roll back onto the pillow. And that's when I saw it. In the mirror across the room. A face. It wasn't fully lit. Half of it was swallowed by darkness, and the other half was washed in this weak orange glow from the streetlight outside. Pale. Still. Just staring straight at me. And I swear to you, I didn't even think. I just exploded out of bed. I turned on every light I could reach. Overhead, lamp, the stupid little kitchen light spilling into the hallway. My heart was going so hard it made me feel nauseous. I crouched down and checked under the bed for real this time. Not just a glance, like I shoved my phone flashlight under there and swept it back and forth. Nothing. I checked the closet, behind the curtains, in the bathroom. I even opened cabinets like that would help. I pulled out boxes. I moved the bed a little, scraping the floor. Nothing. I didn't sleep. Not even a minute. The next day I tried to be rational about it. I told myself, okay, you're exhausted, you're stressed. This is your brain misfiring. Maybe the mirror caught something weird. Maybe my eyes played tricks, right? Yeah, no. Because it happened again, and again, and again. Every night after that, there it was, always in the mirror, always under the bed, always motionless. Just a pale face tucked in the shadow line like it belonged there, like it had been waiting there a long time. And I started doing this horrible little routine. I'd climb into bed, I'd feel that pressure in the room, and I'd glance at the mirror even though I didn't want to. And there it would be, watching me like it was studying my breathing. Then I'd pull the covers up and lie perfectly still, bargaining with myself. If I don't move, I'll fall asleep. If I fall asleep, it can't. I don't even know. I didn't have a plan. I just wanted morning. I told my friend Mara about it. Not the full version, because how do you say it out loud without sounding unhinged? But I tried. I told her I thought I was seeing something, that the new place felt off. But last night is what broke me. I got into bed and I couldn't make myself look. I couldn't do it. I just stared at the ceiling with my eyes watering like if I blinked, something would happen. So I didn't check the mirror. I didn't check under the bed. I just lay there, stiff as a board, telling myself I was done playing along. And at exactly 2:43 a.m., I know because I was watching the clock like a lifeline, I felt the mattress shift. Not like a spring settling, like weight, like someone slowly climbing onto the bed. My entire body went ice cold. My throat did that thing where it locks up, like I couldn't swallow if I tried. The weight moved closer. I felt the dip beside my hips. Then, God, I hate even saying this, I felt warm breath on the back of my neck. And a voice, right there, like it was smiling. You finally stopped checking. I snapped upright so fast it made me dizzy. I fumbled for the lamp and turned it on, and the room flooded with light and nothing. No one. Just my rumpled sheets and my shaking hands. I searched anyway. Closet, bathroom, behind the curtain, under the bed with the phone flashlight again, like I could catch it hiding if I was fast enough. Nothing. I was standing there, breathing hard, trying not to cry, when I looked at the mirror. And my stomach dropped. Because the mirror wasn't reflecting my bed. It showed the floor where the bed should have been, but the bed itself was just gone, like it didn't exist in the glass. Just bare floorboards. And underneath that empty space, that same pale face, staring up at me. Only this time, it blinked, slowly, like it was relieved I could finally see it clearly. Hey, so there's a night from my childhood that I don't tell many people about, but I think about it more often than I'd like to admit. It was the summer right before 5th grade, one of those perfect, dusty golden summers where the days feel endless. We were living outside Grants Pass, Oregon, on this quiet little patch of land with fir trees, a shallow creek, and just enough space to disappear into your own adventures. My older brother, his name was Cole, and I basically lived outdoors. We'd spend all day with the kids who lived down the lane, a girl named Tessa who was a few years older, and her little brother Noah, who was my age. We did everything. Creek swims that turned your lips blue, muddy feet on the porch, riding our battered go-kart until it sputtered out, building forts out of scrap wood and arguing over whose base was better, catching salamanders in old coffee cans and swearing we'd keep them as pets, for like 12 minutes. Our house wasn't anything fancy, but I can still picture it like I'm standing there right now. There was this long hallway that connected everything, bedrooms on one side, bathroom at the end, and my parents' room kind of angled across from ours. At night, the hall always had this dim, comforting glow from a little lamp in the living room. That light made the dark feel less big. That night was just normal, a weekday. My parents did the usual routine, tuck us in, quick good night, reminder to stay in our own beds. My mom had been trying to break me of the habit of sneaking into their room when I got scared, so I promised. I remember being proud of myself, actually. Like, okay, I can do this. I'm not a baby. I fell asleep with my door cracked open, listening to the quiet of the house and the kind of country silence that feels thick and heavy. And then, sometime in the middle of the night, I heard a voice. Not loud, not harsh. Soft, like someone trying not to startle you. Mara. It said, "Wake up." I opened my eyes, and there was a woman sitting right on the edge of my bed. At first, my brain tried to make it make sense. I thought, Mom, because who else would be in my room? But the longer I stared, the more my stomach dropped. She wasn't my mom. She looked wrong, in a way that's hard to explain without sounding dramatic. Her skin was so pale it almost looked like porcelain. She was wearing this flowing white dress, like something from an old photograph. Her hair was dark, inky black, and pinned up loosely, like she'd gotten ready in a hurry. And her lipstick was this deep, vivid red that shouldn't have stood out as much as it did, but it did. She wasn't snarling or angry. That's the strange part. Her face was calm, almost gentle, like she'd been waiting for me. She leaned in slightly and said, "Mara Grace, I need you to come with me. There's something I need to show you." And that's when the fear hit. Real fear. Not a spooky story kind. This is not right kind. My heart started going so fast I could feel it in my throat. I remember my hands going cold under the blanket. I whispered, "I can't. I'm not allowed to leave my room. My mom will get mad." She smiled, just a little, and said, "It's okay. I'll bring you right back, I promise." But something in me, some instinct I didn't even know kids had, was screaming no. So I tried to buy time. I said, "Okay, but I have to use the bathroom first." She stood up and stepped back like she was giving me space, like she respected that. And the second she moved, I slid out of bed and walked as calmly as I could into the hall. I even used the toilet. Partly because I actually had to, but mostly because I needed something normal, something solid. Because in my head I kept thinking, maybe I'm dreaming. But everything felt too sharp, too real. After a minute, I made a plan. I'd unlock the door, run straight to my parents' room, and throw it open. I didn't care if I got in trouble. I just needed them awake. I needed other eyes on me. Proof. Safety. I remember taking one deep breath like I was about to jump into freezing water. Then I flung the bathroom door open and sprinted down the hallway. I was so focused on my parents' door that I didn't even look left or right. I could see the handle. I could see the thin crack of darkness under the door. And right as my hand reached for it, something grabbed me. And I know how that sounds, but I swear to you, I still remember the exact sensation. It wasn't like a normal hand. It was cold, yes, but also empty, like being clutched by air that had weight, like pressure without warmth, like the space around my arm tightened and burned all at once. I screamed. I mean, full, animal, from the bottom of your lungs screamed. In the same instant, my dad sat up in bed. I saw him through the crack as the door shifted, his silhouette, his head snapping toward the sound. And the moment his eyes hit mine, it let go. I fell forward onto the hallway floor, sobbing so hard I couldn't catch my breath. My dad yanked the bedroom door open, and my mom was right behind him, panicked and confused, trying to figure out what was happening. The woman was gone. Not fading, not walking away, just gone, like she'd never been there. Later, when I could talk, I described her. The white dress, the dark hair, the red lipstick. And I will never forget my dad's face changing, like all the color drained out of him. He said, very quietly, "Mara, that sounds like my mom." My grandmother. She died when I was a toddler. I didn't have memories of her, not real ones. But he insisted the description matched her perfectly, even down to the way she wore her hair in old pictures. And I'm telling you, I didn't know those details. I couldn't have. So yeah, that's the story. And I still don't know what to do with it. I don't know what she wanted to show me. I don't know where she wanted to take me. I don't know if it was her at all, or something that just wore her face to get me to follow. All I know is this: even now, years later, the hallway in that house feels like a photograph burned into the back of my mind. And sometimes, when I'm lying awake at night, I catch myself wondering the same thing I wondered as a kid. What would have happened if I'd gone with her? Hello everyone, welcome to the Paranormal M channel. I'm so excited to be here and share my paranormal experiences with you. Been having trouble sleeping lately? Come on in, we've got you. And don't hesitate to send us your own paranormal stories. Also, have you subscribed and turned on notifications yet? If not, you might miss our newest videos. Now get comfy, and let's dive into today's paranormal experiences. So, I don't really talk about this stuff out loud very often, because if I hadn't lived through it, I'd probably be the guy rolling his eyes and going, "Yeah, okay, sure you did." But I did. And the older I get, the more I realize how weirdly clear these memories still are, like they're pinned to a timeline in my head. Alright, first one. I was maybe 4 years old, give or take. A little kid living with my parents in this quiet neighborhood in western Massachusetts. The kind of place where everybody knew everybody, and the houses weren't big, but they felt big when you were tiny. Our house had 3 levels, a basement that always smelled a little damp, a main floor, and then the upstairs where the bedrooms were. You'd walk in the front door, and the living room was right there on the right, kitchen on the left, and the stairs straight ahead like an invitation. Upstairs, there were 2 bedrooms. My parents had the one on the left, and I had the one on the right. And my room, at least in my kid brain, was enormous. The thing I remember most is the closet. Just a normal closet. Except it wasn't. It had that old pull string light bulb inside, one of those cords you yank to turn it on and off. But above the closet was this weird little door, like a hatch, leading into this attic-ish space above my room. Nobody ever used it. Not once. Which, now that I'm thinking about it, feels off. Anyway, one afternoon I'm on the floor in front of the open closet, absolutely surrounded by kid chaos. I had this red plastic bin full of Legos and random toy junk, little action figures, loose wheels, half a dinosaur, all the important stuff. I also had crayons, paper, and some clay I'd been turning into terrible snakes. My dad had been doodling these perfect little 3D boxes around that time, like cubes, and it had become my personal mystery of the universe. I was obsessed with figuring out how he did the back lines. So picture this: a grubby-faced kid sitting cross-legged, aggressively stabbing a piece of paper with a crayon, trying to force the back of a cube to exist through sheer determination. And then I hear a little sound from inside the closet. I look up, and that pull string for the light is gently swaying side to side. My first thought is basically, weird. And then I go right back to my cube mission. A few seconds later, another sound. This time, the string isn't gently swaying. It's whipping around like somebody's flicking it. And I remember, very distinctly, having this completely unserious child reaction of, adults are always doing weird things, whatever. Then it changes again. The cord goes totally still. And then it starts getting yanked straight down like someone's pulling it, over and over, clicking the light on and off. On, off, on, off. And then the closet door swings shut by itself. And I just stared at it for a moment. And I swear to you, I had this calm little thought like, never seen that before. And then I went right back to stabbing my paper. I know. In hindsight, I'm like, excuse me? How was I not screaming? But I was 4. My brain filed it under mystery grown-up mechanics and moved on. Now, the second thing in that room wasn't a one-time event. It was a night thing, like a recurring thing. My bed was in the far corner of the room, and near the bedroom door there was a window. Every night, I'd lie on my side facing that window while I drifted off. And almost every night, there was this pale bluish glow there. And here's the part that sounds the most ridiculous. The glow would sort of become whatever I imagined. At that age, I was obsessed with giant robots. There was this movie I loved, and I kept picturing this towering metal figure out in the distance. In the bluish window mist, it would look like the robot was way out there, semi-transparent, tinted blue, slowly walking toward the house, but never actually getting closer. And I'd watch it until I fell asleep, night after night. It never felt threatening. It was just strange, almost comforting in a weird way. My parents said they'd had odd moments in that house too, but I'm sticking to what I personally saw and heard. Okay, fast forward about a decade. I'm around 14, and by then my family had moved down south, closer to Virginia, but we came back up to Massachusetts for the holidays to visit my grandmother, Marjorie. She lived in this cozy apartment building, nothing fancy, but warm and familiar. I'd stayed there a bunch as a kid and never had anything weird happen. That night, everyone's deciding sleeping arrangements, and they tell me to take the couch in the living room. Fine, whatever. Teen me is just happy nobody is making me share a bed with a snoring relative. So it's late, like 1 or 2 in the mummer, and the apartment is pitch black. Totally silent except for the little hum of the building. I'm lying on the couch with my handheld game system, playing this old Pokemon game, doing one of those repetitive little grinding tasks you only have the patience for when you're 14. I'm half annoyed, half locked in, pressing buttons like it's my job. And then, out of nowhere, I get this sharp awareness. It's really dark in here. Not scared dark, just suddenly aware of it. And the thought didn't feel like it came naturally. It felt injected, like someone nudged my attention. And the instant that thought lands, I hear something above me. On the ceiling. It's muffled at first, like someone talking through a wall. Except it doesn't sound like a neighbor. It sounds like it's in the room with me. Like a man murmuring without stopping, low, rapid, relentless. I freeze and stare upward like, what is that? And the murmuring gets louder, clearer, and then I realize, no joke, the sound is repeating my thoughts. Not in a crisp voice, in this messy, whispery mumble, like it's chewing the words up. If I thought cat, it would go, cat, 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 cat. If I thought something stupid, it would latch onto that too, immediately, like a mirror with a mouth. I'm trying to stay cool, because I'm a teenager and pride is a powerful force, so I do this very casual move where I pull the blanket up and go, I'm not scared, I'm just getting comfortable. I'm cold. Meanwhile, my brain is going a mile a minute. To drown it out, I crank the game volume up and press the speaker close to my face. I even switch areas in the game to get louder music, like that's going to save me. It doesn't, because the whispering starts moving. Not physically like footsteps, but the sound shifts from the ceiling, down, like it's descending toward me. And it gets louder and louder until it's basically right next to my head, like a real person leaning in and whispering non-stop. And at first, this is so embarrassing. I actually try to make it say ridiculous stuff on purpose, because my teenage brain is like, oh, it's a thought parrot? Watch this. So I think the dumbest, most inappropriate words I can, and it starts mumbling them, and for like 30 seconds it's almost funny, because it will not stop. It doesn't pause, it doesn't breathe, it's just relentless. And the moment I start feeling fear, my thoughts turn into pure panic. So the whisper turns into pure panic too. It's like, what is that? What is that? It's right here. It's right here. Stop, stop, stop. And it's echoing it back in that ugly, whispery loop, getting tighter and louder and closer. Something in me snaps into fight or flight. And I pick fight. I throw the blanket off like I'm squaring up with the darkness, and I swing my fist straight toward where the sound is. And instantly, silence. Gone. Just gone. Like someone hit a switch. I sat there breathing hard in the dark, listening for it to come back, but it didn't. The apartment was normal again. Quiet. Still. That was the last time anything like that ever happened to me. I'm in my late 20s now, and I'm way more skeptical than I used to be. I can rationalize a lot. Sleep stuff, stress, your brain doing strange things in the dark. But I'll never forget those 2 moments. The closet light that moved like it had hands, and the whisper in my grandmother's apartment that sounded like it knew exactly what was inside my head. So I went to see my mom today, and I'm planning to stay the whole weekend. We were sitting together later in the evening. Tea, blankets, that quiet end-of-day kind of calm. And she tells me she's had something, honestly, really strange happen this morning. At first, she didn't even want to say it out loud. She kept pausing, like, "You're going to think I've lost it." And I swear, she looked genuinely upset, like she was embarrassed to even bring it up. But eventually she took a breath and told me. And here's the thing. This isn't the first weird experience we've had around that apartment. Years ago, back when I still lived there, we both saw these odd lights outside very early in the morning, like a floating little light sphere, kind of. And on totally separate mornings, weeks apart, we each heard footsteps moving through the hallway when no one else was there. Same time of day, too. Neither of us told the other until later, which somehow made it creepier. Anyway, this morning is what really got her. She woke up before sunrise, still dim outside, that gray-blue darkness when morning's coming but hasn't arrived yet. The sunlight wasn't even on her side of the house yet. She turned over toward her pillow, this old pillow she's had forever, like more than a decade, and she froze. Because it was glowing. Not like, "I think I see something," glowing. Like actually glowing. She said it looked as if there were dozens of fireflies trapped inside the pillowcase, all clustered together into one big, warm, yellow ball of light. And she just stared at it, trying to make her brain catch up. Then she did what anyone would do. She touched it, just to check if it was some trick of her eyes. And the second her fingers pressed into the pillow, the light sort of shifted, like it slid away from her touch. And that big glow split into a few smaller round lights, little orbs almost, moving aside as if they were making room. And then, just like that, it stopped. No fading, no slow dimming, just gone. My mom got up immediately and went into full investigation mode. She took the pillow to the bathroom, turned on the light, checked the seams, opened the case, shook it, squeezed it, even turned the bathroom light off to see if it would happen again. She said she felt ridiculous, but also terrified. Like, what do you do when your pillow behaves like it's alive? I tried thinking logically too. Static electricity crossed my mind because synthetic fabric can do weird things. But from what I've read, static usually looks like tiny bluish specks, and you have to rub the fabric to make it happen. This sounded different. It sounded deliberate. So she goes back into her bedroom, still unsettled, and decides she needs air. She opens the window. And that's when the second thing happens. Out in the sky, not high like a star, and not far away like a plane, there's this glowing round object. She guessed it was maybe a kilometer or two away, low enough that it didn't feel astronomical. And it wasn't a steady light either. She described it as shimmering, pink and gold and hints of green, like looking into a little kaleidoscope that's somehow hanging in the air. She stood there watching it for maybe half a minute, completely stunned. She said it drifted slightly, like it was gliding or bobbing, not shooting across the sky. Then she glanced away for a second, just a reflex, like her mind needed a break. And when she looked back, it had shrunk, like it was pulling farther into the distance. And then it vanished. No streak, no fade into clouds, nothing. Just gone. When she told me, she started crying. Not dramatic crying, more like the kind where you're frustrated and scared and you don't know how to explain something without sounding insane. She kept saying, "I swear to you, I'm not making this up." And then she said something that really stuck with me. She had this strong feeling that the thing in the sky might have shined onto the pillow somehow, like the two events weren't separate. They happened within maybe 20 or 30 minutes of each other, and in her gut, it felt connected. I don't know what to make of it. I've heard plenty of strange stories, but nothing quite like this. Not the firefly glowing pillow, not the kaleidoscope light in the sky, and definitely not both in the same morning. And honestly, I'm staying the weekend, but I'm not sure I'll sleep as easily as I thought I would. So, I want to start by painting you a picture, because this whole thing only makes sense if you can see where it happened. I grew up in this little Midwestern town where people actually knew each other. Like, knew each other. Families lived close. Neighbors waved. If someone's porch light was out, somebody mentioned it. It was that kind of place. Our house sat halfway down a quiet block. My grandparents, Nana and Grandpa Ron, lived right on the corner nearest us. And behind them, kind of tucked to the side on the cross street, lived this older woman named Marjorie. Between our three houses, all the backyards basically touched. The only thing separating ours was this fenced-off section because we had a small above-ground pool. If I wanted to get from our back door to Marjorie's place, I'd slip outside, cut through my grandparents' yard, and follow the outside of our pool fence until I reached this little wooden garden arch. You stepped under that arch and, boom, you were in Marjorie's backyard. And when I was little, Marjorie was my best friend. She'd been widowed long before I ever knew her, lived alone, and had grown kids I barely saw. But she and I, we were inseparable. We planted flowers together, made little craft projects, and my favorite thing was sitting on her couch while she had me read the comics from the newspaper out loud. It drove my mom, Denise, absolutely nuts, because I'd be reading way earlier than she expected, but honestly, I give Marjorie credit for how comfortable I became with reading. Everything felt safe back then. Peaceful. Quiet. No weird history, no scary rumors, nothing like that. And then, one summer afternoon when I was about 12, something happened that split my life into a before and after. It was the middle of summer, hot enough that the air felt thick. We didn't have AC, so my mom and I were at the kitchen table with the window open, trying to steal whatever breeze we could get. She was flipping through a magazine. I was reading a book. Our back door was right there in the kitchen. My older brother, Ethan, he was around 14, had been outside mowing Marjorie's backyard as a favor. And then the back door opened. I looked up expecting him to stomp in sweaty and annoyed, like usual. But he came in, crying. Not full-on bawling at first, more like that exhausted, defeated kind of whimpering people do when they're trying not to break down. He was pale, like ghost pale, and he just stood in the doorway like he didn't know what room he was in. My mom turned around fast, chair scraping. "What's wrong?" she said, already moving. Ethan's eyes were wide, his whole body trembling, and he just stared at us like he'd run straight out of a nightmare and didn't know if he was safe yet. My mom reached him and wrapped him up, and then the sobbing really started. He tried to talk, but it came out in this frantic rush. Voices, shadows, footsteps, something moving around him even though no one was there. I couldn't catch every detail because it was so panicked and fast but the words that did land made my stomach tighten. My mom gave me this quick look, like something's wrong, and half-guided, half-carried Ethan into the living room, still holding him. I honestly think she was trying to figure out if he was overheating, like heat stroke or something. But me? I was 12. It was bright outside. Middle of the day. Part of me was shaken by how Ethan was, but another part of me was like, no way. Not in our backyard. Not in full daylight. So I did the dumbest, brave thing a 12-year-old can do. I walked right out the back door. I took the little path into my grandparents' yard, turned left, followed the fence line, and stepped under the garden arch into Marjorie's backyard. And the second I crossed under it, I got hit with nausea so hard it almost dropped me, and the air changed. It felt heavier, dense, thick, like I was walking into water, and at the same time it felt charged, electrified. The only comparison I've ever had for it is standing too close to a TV with static, like the whole atmosphere is buzzing and prickling and alive. Then I heard footsteps. At first, they were soft, like distant thumps, but I could feel them too, like vibration through the ground. And then there was this faint laughter, this awful, cliché kind of laughter, like someone mocking you, but it wasn't coming from one spot. It felt like it was in the treetops, in the air itself, everywhere at once. And shadows started moving. Not like a person shadow, more like patches of darkness slipping at the edge of my vision. I'd catch one in my peripheral sight, turn to focus, and it would vanish. Except it kept happening, over and over, like something was circling just outside my ability to look straight at it. I stood up a little more, still holding my stomach. The footsteps got heavier, louder, closer, like something massive was running in circles around me, even though I couldn't see anything. The laughter rose with it until it wasn't laughter anymore. It was this shrieking, taunting sound that made my skin crawl. And the trees started shaking. These were huge old oaks, thick trunks, tall, solid, the kind that don't move unless there's a real storm. But they were rattling from trunk to treetop like something invisible was yanking them. There was no wind. At that point, my brain basically screamed, "Leave! Now!" I forced myself upright and ran back toward the arch, and as I crossed through it, I caught shadow movement along the fence line. Closer, sharper, more defined. I turned my head for half a second, just a half second, and I saw them. 4 tall figures, pure black. No transparency, no details, just voids shaped like something standing upright. Cloaked looking, too tall to be normal. 7, maybe 8 feet. I couldn't see faces, but I knew they were looking at me the way you can feel eyes on you in a dark room. They glided along the ground, keeping pace from about 20 feet away. And then, one by one, they just disappeared. Not behind anything, not into shadows, just gone. I sprinted back to the house, flung the back door open, and practically crashed into the kitchen. My mom was there again, and I started spilling everything. Nausea, footsteps, the air, the laughter, the trees, the tall figures. My words coming out just as fast as Ethan's had. She held up her hand and told me to lower my voice. And then, quietly, she listened, all the way through. When I finished, she looked at me very seriously and said, "Don't tell your brother. He's already shaken. He doesn't need more." So, that was that day. A year later, we moved. New town, more land, different house. Nothing about the move had anything to do with what happened. Ethan never experienced anything again. Neither did my parents. Neither did my other siblings. But for me, it followed. That static, electrified air, the shifting shadows, it started happening again, randomly at first, then more often. Eventually it was weekly, sometimes more. Daytime, nighttime, alone, sometimes even with other people nearby, and nobody else ever seemed to notice. It eventually stopped being terrifying in the moment, because once something becomes common, your brain gets tired of screaming. But the unease never left. It was like having the constant sense that you're in the same room as someone dangerous, except Someone was a cluster of moving, shapeless shadows that came and went, and when they were near, the whole world felt charged and wrong. And then something stranger happened. I realized I could trigger it. After that, it stopped being spontaneous most of the time. I could leave it alone for weeks, then test it just to see if it still worked, then back off again. I don't even know how each episode ended, honestly. I think I just walked away, changed rooms, got distracted, like it was bound to whatever space I was in. Until one night, it didn't feel like I called it. It felt like it forced its way in. At our new place, we had a big property with a few outbuildings. One of them became this hangout spot, kind of a clubhouse, where we could be loud and nobody cared. I played guitar, so I spent a lot of time out there because I could crank an amp without anyone yelling at me. One night, late, like edging into early morning, I was out there playing for hours. I'd recently gotten a new amplifier, and I was obsessed with it. At some point, I noticed the volume knob felt loose, like it kept creeping down on its own. It was irritating, so I turned it all the way up and started playing hard, fast, half to blow off steam, half because I wanted to catch the knob in the act. I leaned forward, eyes fixed on it, and right in front of me, that knob twisted straight down to 0. The amp went dead silent, and the moment it did, the air exploded with that electric pressure, stronger than I'd ever felt it, like the room had been filled with charged mist. I sat up and realized the space was full of them. Not 10, not a handful, more like 50. Shadows gliding everywhere, appearing and melting out of existence like something was erasing and redrawing them in different places. And what scared me most was how uninterested they seemed. Like I wasn't the main event. Like I was just familiar. I couldn't move. I just sat there, frozen in my chair. Then something shifted to my left. Bigger movement, heavier. I turned and saw one shape on the wall that was clearer than anything I'd ever seen. A spider. Not a normal spider. A huge one, the size of a crib mattress. Solid black like the others, but the outline was unmistakable. And even though I know spiders don't move like this, the head or front of it rotated toward me, like it had noticed me. And then it dropped. Straight down from the wall to the floor, disappearing behind a stack of boxes. That was it. I bolted. I ran out of that building so fast I nearly tripped, and as I sprinted uphill toward the house, for the first time, I could feel it pursuing me. Not just around me, but in my head. Like something closing in from the edges of my thoughts, trying to swallow the space I was in. I got inside, raced to my bedroom, dove onto my bed face first, shoved my face into a pillow, and yanked my blanket over my head like a little kid. And I could feel the darkness pressing into the room. I didn't know what else to do. So I prayed. Not a polite prayer, not a calm one, a desperate one, over and over. Please, please make this stop. I don't want this anymore. Please. And then, under the blanket, eyes squeezed shut, I felt light. Not like imagination light, like actual brightness coming through my eyelids. It startled me so much I sat up and looked around, searching for the source. Nothing. The room was dark. But the second I ducked back down and started praying again, that light came back. And it kept happening. Dark pressure returning when I stopped, the light swelling when I prayed. At some point I realized, if the darkness could return, that meant it was also retreating. So I prayed harder, like I was hanging onto a rope. The light built and built until it felt like it should be blinding, except it didn't hurt. It was warm, comforting warm, the kind that makes you feel safe in your bones. And with it came this soft roaring sound, gentle but huge, like wind through a massive space. Then, suddenly, it cut off. Dark again. But the wrong darkness was gone. No heaviness, no pursuing pressure, no fear. Just calm. When I came out, my oldest brother was in the hall waiting, half asleep and annoyed. He was like, "Dude, seriously? You okay?" And I said something totally normal, like, "Yeah, I just had to take a massive crap." But inside, I felt clean, like I'd never felt better in my life. And that was the last time. After that night, the static atmosphere stopped. The shadows stopped. The feeling of being watched stopped. Like whatever had been clinging to me, whether it was real, psychological, spiritual, I don't even know. Whatever it was done. And I know this is a long story. I've never told it quite like this before. But if I'm being honest, I still remember exactly what that garden arch felt like a doorway you can't see until you step through it. Okay, so I need to tell you what's been going on because I'm at this weird point where I don't know if I'm overreacting or if I'm underreacting. So the house next door to me, it's been empty forever, like years. It's this huge, creaky old mansion with the kind of porch you can picture in an old photograph. A few different owners have bought it in a short span, 3, I think. And every single time, they start renovations and then just stop, mid-project. Boards in the yard, tarps half on, windows covered, and then nothing. No moving truck, no, finally, someone's living there. Just silence. And then, maybe 5-ish weeks ago, I started noticing lights. Not normal, someone's home lights. I mean, lights turning on late, always after 1 a.m. And I'm awake then because I work from home and my schedule is basically nocturnal. The first time I saw it, I did the rational thing. Maybe the owners came by. Maybe they needed to grab something. But there were no cars, no headlights, no doors opening. Just a glow in an upstairs room, like someone flipped a switch and walked away. The second time, it happened even later, like 2:15, 2:30, and still no cars. So I called the cops because, okay, fine, maybe someone broke in. Squatters, bored teenagers, whatever. And honestly, I love old buildings. I have a soft spot for them. The idea of people trashing that place for fun made my stomach twist. The officers came out, walked the property, knocked, shined flashlights in windows. Nothing. No broken doors, no smashed windows, no obvious way in. And they told me they couldn't enter without permission unless there was clear evidence of a break-in. So they left. It happened again a couple nights later. Same deal. I called again. Same routine, same outcome. And I could tell, by the way they looked at me, that they were already filing me away in their minds as the neighbor who calls about nothing. So I decided the next time it happened, I would record it. Just proof. Something solid. 4 nights went by, and I started thinking maybe it stopped. And then one night, I was in my kitchen making the saddest meal imaginable. Heated up garlic bread and a frozen pizza, and I had my timer set. I remember the exact time because the timer went off at 3:07 a.m. I walked over to the oven, and through my kitchen window, I saw the basement lights on next door. So I grabbed my phone and started recording. And the second I hit record, the light in their kitchen snapped on, the window facing my direction. And at that exact moment, the basement light clicked off, like it was coordinated. Like it noticed me. And then it got wrong. Lights started flashing on and off in different parts of the house. Kitchen, front room, upstairs hallway, attic window, basement again. Like someone was hopping around rooms at superhuman speed. Except it wasn't one light at a time. It was overlapping. Lights flipping in totally different levels of the house almost simultaneously. Like there would need to be a person in each room, all playing some stupid synchronized game. It didn't feel like someone's inside. It felt like the house itself was doing it. So I called 911 again. The cops showed up and, of course, by the time they arrived, everything was dark, quiet, like nothing had happened. They gave me that look. You know the one, the polite one that says, "Sure, okay," while their brain is already halfway back to their car. So I told them, I recorded it. I pulled out my phone, hit play, and the video wouldn't open. And the officers didn't even try to hide their doubt. They did their little walk around again and left. And I swear to you, swear, the minute they pulled away, the attic light flicked on once. Just a single blink, like a smirking little, "Nice try." After that, I stopped calling the police. I'm not trying to become the neighborhood joke, but the lights kept happening, and every time I tried to record, phone, tablet, even my old backup device I keep in a drawer, something went wrong. The photo wouldn't save. The video would freeze. A black screen, a corrupted file, every single time. Then 3 nights ago, I said something I shouldn't have said. I'd been running on fumes and I wasn't working that night. I was exhausted, like bone-deep exhausted, so I decided I'd just watch TV on the couch until I drifted off. Before I settled in, I went into the kitchen to turn off the little light above my fish tank. I have a betta fish, and I always say goodnight to him like a lunatic. So I said, "Good night, Captain," because that's what I named him. And then, half joking, half just being dumb, I looked out the window toward the mansion and I went, "Good night, whoever you are." Like, I didn't even say ghost. I didn't want to give it that much. I was trying to be casual, flippant, like you talk to an empty room. And right after I said it, the living room light in that mansion snapped on. But here's the thing. It wasn't the usual warm white glow I'd seen before. It was red. Not, "Maybe the shade is weird." Not, "Maybe my eyes are tired." Red. Like someone put a red bulb in there on purpose. It held for maybe a second, long enough for my whole body to go cold, and then it shut off. And I just whispered, "Nope," like I was declining a party invitation. And I walked straight back to my couch and laid down like pretending hard enough could erase reality. About 15 minutes later, my cat, Miso, who'd been curled up on my stomach, shot upright like she got electrocuted. She hissed. A real, ugly hiss. And then she bolted out of the room like something chased her. And as soon as I sat up, I heard my front doorknob jiggle. Not a bump. Not the house settling. The unmistakable sound of someone trying the knob. Like a hand testing it. Once. Twice. I flew to the door, heart pounding, and looked through the peephole. No one. I checked the windows, the yard, the sidewalk, the street. Nothing. Nobody. And that's the part that's messing with me most. Because the lights were creepy, sure, but they were at a distance. They were a mystery I could squint at and call weird. But the doorknob? That was here. That was my space. Now I'm barely sleeping. And when I do, I get nightmares. Really vivid ones. The kind where you wake up more tired than when you went to bed. And I keep replaying it, over and over. That red light, my cat hissing, the doorknob turning. And I keep thinking, did I invite something? Did acknowledging it, even lightly, make it feel like it could come closer? So I don't know what to do now. Do I ignore it completely and act like it's not happening? Do I try to figure out what it is and risk making it worse by paying attention? And how do you even confirm something is supernatural without spiraling into paranoia? Because I'll be honest with you, part of me still wants a normal explanation. A wiring issue, a prank, a squatter with a weird obsession with light switches. But the other part of me, the part that heard my doorknob move in the dark, can't shake the feeling that something heard me. And it answered. So, this happened to me a few years back, and I almost never bring it up. Not because I've forgotten it, trust me, I haven't, but because it sounds like something you'd make up for attention. And I'm not asking you to believe me, okay? I'm just telling you because it still sits on my chest sometimes, like a weight. Back then, I was dating this guy named Ethan, and we were hanging out with our friend Drew. Ethan and Drew were those super logical, prove it or it's not real types. Like, they'd roll their eyes at astrology, anything paranormal, all of it. Meanwhile, I've always been the person who's like, hey, maybe we don't mess with things we don't understand. Anyway, it was late, around 10 p.m., and we got the bright idea to drive out to the beach. And someone, Drew, I think, decides it would be fun to make a homemade spirit board. Real arts and crafts energy. Cardboard, marker, a little cup as the planchette. The whole thing. And before you assume it, no, we weren't drunk. No drugs, nothing. Just 3 bored people who thought the ocean at night would be a vibe. I remember sitting there and being the only one not laughing. I kept saying, if you're going to do this, you have to take it seriously. They were clowning, asking dumb questions, trying to spook each other. We get to the beach. It's dark and windy, and the waves sound louder than normal, like the whole shoreline is breathing. I did the whole little, okay, we're opening this thing, calling the corners, setting the intention, whatever you want to call it. We sat on a blanket, the cup in the middle, our fingers barely touching it. For the first 20 minutes, nothing. It was exactly what they expected, me being dramatic over cardboard. Then Ethan asks, half joking, is anyone here with us? And I swear to you, the cup slid so fast it didn't even feel like a slow push. It just shot across the letters and stopped right on yes. All 3 of us froze. Like the air went tight. Even the ocean sounded farther away for a second. Ethan's face changed immediately. No more smirking. Drew did that thing where people laugh when they're scared, but it wasn't a normal laugh. It was sharp, too loud, like it was coming out of him without permission. I was like, nope, we're done. I tried to end it right there. I started saying, goodbye, goodbye, and I moved the cup toward the edge like you're supposed to. I tried to close it. I wanted it shut. But the feeling didn't stop. And then things got wrong. Drew starts laughing harder, like it's building, and Ethan suddenly stands up and starts pulling off his hoodie and his shoes, like he's on autopilot. He looks at the water and goes, really calmly, I'm going in. And I'm like, Ethan, what are you doing? Because it was cold, like truly cold, and it was late enough that the beach had emptied out hours ago. The only lights were distant street lamps, and the moon was barely doing anything. He doesn't look at me like my boyfriend. He looks through me, blank. And he just repeats, I'm going in. I'm begging him, like, actually begging. I'm crying and grabbing his arm, trying to hold him back, and he's still walking toward the water like I'm not even there. Meanwhile, Drew is still laughing, but now he's shouting that his name is Pauline, over and over, like he's announcing it to the beach, like he wants someone to hear him. Ethan and I are terrified at this point. We're trying to get Drew to come back with us, and he's bouncing between laughing and yelling that name. We basically drag him up the wooden steps off the sand, back toward the parking lot. We get him to the car, and then, out of nowhere, he locks onto something across the road. A shadow moving by the dunes. A coyote. Not even close. And Drew bolts after it. When I tell you I've never seen someone move like that, listen, I know how it sounds. It wasn't, oh, he ran fast. It was like his body was doing something it shouldn't be able to do. Long, insane strides, like panic had turned into fuel. Ethan and I catch up just enough to yank him back and basically shove him into the back seat. We're shaking. I'm trying not to hyperventilate. On the drive back, we pass this small chapel, not a big church, just one of those little roadside ones, and Drew suddenly sits up straight and starts making sounds that aren't words. Not English, not anything I recognized. It sounded like a burst of language without meaning, but with a rhythm. Like chanting, almost. Ethan keeps glancing at me like, what do we do? And I'm just staring straight ahead thinking, we messed up, we messed up, we messed up. We get to Ethan's place, and I hate admitting this, but we panicked. We ran inside and slammed the door behind us. And Drew was outside pulling at the handle, clawing at the wood. The next day, when Ethan checked the door, there were literal scratch marks, like someone had dragged their nails down it hard enough to leave grooves. That night, I called my friend Maya, because Maya is the kind of person who actually knows things. Like, she studied spiritual stuff, protection rituals, the whole deal. She didn't laugh when I told her. She got very quiet and told me to put the phone near Drew. And then Maya said a word. She said it was from the Cree language. Just one word. Short. Firm. The second Maya said it, Drew's whole body jolted like he'd been punched from the inside. He threw up, not normal sick, like sudden violent vomiting. And then he started sobbing. Real sobbing. The kind where you can't breathe between cries. And he just kept saying, "What happened? What happened to me?" Like he didn't remember. Like he'd woken up somewhere he didn't recognize. After that, things calmed down. Not immediately, but enough that we could function again. We didn't touch the board. We didn't talk about it much. We just tried to pretend we could outrun it by not naming it. But here's the part that still messes with me. The next day we stop for food, some drive-through place, nothing special, and the employee inside keeps calling out an order. "For Pauline!" Again and again. And nobody goes up to get it. We're sitting there in the car, staring at each other like someone just turned the world into a joke we didn't understand. After that, we drifted. The three of us, slowly, naturally, like friendships do sometimes. But I've always wondered if we drifted because none of us could figure out how to talk about it without sounding insane. But I knew them. They weren't theater kids. They weren't prank people. And some things, like Drew running after that coyote, like the scratches on the door, like the way Ethan's eyes looked when he said, "I'm going swimming," without blinking, those things don't feel like acting when you're standing in front of them. So I don't know what it was. I just know that sometimes, when I hear waves at night, I think of that cardboard board and that single, fast slide to yes. And I get this cold feeling in my stomach, like the beach is still waiting for us to come back and finish the conversation. Okay, so I don't really tell this story outside of a tiny circle of friends, mostly because it sounds like the kind of thing you'd swear you'd made up after the fact. But I swear to you, this happened. Back in the early 2010s, I was in college in Chicago. I lived on campus all 4 years, in this tall old dorm that had been standing forever, built sometime around the 1920s. Before the school bought it, it wasn't even a dorm. It used to be this busy downtown building with offices and little storefronts, so you could just feel the layers of time in it, you know? Like thousands of people had passed through those halls long before we ever showed up with ramen and laundry bags. Anyway, it's my junior year, late 2012, and I'm living in a suite with 4 other guys. We had this shared common room that we basically treated like our living room. Couch, TV, a couple mismatched chairs, the usual. And the weird part of the layout was the window. It was huge, and it looked straight down the hall into the common room of the suite across from us. And the suite across from us was a group of girls we knew. Same year, same classes, friendly but not best friends. Their common room had the same big glass window. So when both sets of blinds were open, it was like accidental reality TV. They could see us, we could see them. Most of the time, we'd just ignore it, or do a little wave if someone happened to look over. So one night, it's me and two of my suite mates, Evan and Noah, camped out on the couch. We'd ordered a pizza and we were doing this dumb, perfect college thing. A marathon of kung fu movies, one after another, getting way too invested in every dramatic slow-motion punch. And I need you to understand something about Evan and Noah, because it matters. Both of them are the most level-headed, skeptical, rational people I've ever met. The type who would rather argue statistics than entertain a ghost story. No superstition, no, maybe it was a spirit, none of that. If anything weird happens, they immediately start hunting for the sensible explanation. Also, we were completely sober. No drinks, no anything, just pizza grease and martial arts sound effects. It's late, like right around midnight, and at some point I catch movement through that window across the hall. Not in the movie, not a reflection, real movement in the girls' common room. All three of us look over at the same time because it's obvious. Their lights are on, which makes it crystal clear, and we see a man walking right through the middle of their common room. At first glance, it's not like, oh my god, intruder. He looks like staff. Late middle-aged, thinning hair, kind of stocky. He's wearing dark work coveralls and something like a utility belt, like keys or tools hanging off it. The thing is, staff wasn't supposed to be in the building that late. Maintenance and custodial people clocked out early, definitely before 9 p.m. And on top of that, the campus had just sent emails warning about people from outside slipping into dorms when doors didn't latch, wandering halls, trying handles. So the second we see this guy, the vibe in the room changes. I remember blurting out something like, "Why is a custodian in their suite right now?" Noah squints and goes, "Maybe they had a leak, like an emergency call?" And I'm like, "Sure, maybe." But it doesn't sit right, because we don't see any of the girls. No one's talking to him. No one's following him. He's just moving through the room like he has a destination. And I'm thinking, if this is some random guy who got in, or someone who shouldn't be there, those girls are our friends. We can't just shrug and go back to the movie. So we stand up immediately and head into the hallway. We step into the hall and look down toward the elevator bank. And there he is. Same guy, same coveralls, walking calmly toward the elevators like he's finishing a shift. We start moving faster. We're not sprinting, but we're definitely trying to catch up before he disappears into an elevator. We're maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 meters behind him, close enough that I can see the shape of his shoulders and the way his arms swing. Close enough that this doesn't feel like a trick of lighting. And I call out, loud enough to echo a little in the hallway. "Hey, sir." Nothing. So I try again, louder. "Hey, excuse me." Still nothing. No head turn, no pause, no flinch. Like we're air. And that right there is when my stomach drops. Because it's one thing if he's staff and just doesn't feel like dealing with students, but you still react when someone calls out in an empty hall. You at least acknowledge sound. He keeps walking. He reaches the elevator bank, and from our angle, it looks like he steps into one of the elevator openings. We rush the last stretch, and I'm already rehearsing what I'm going to say, like, "Sorry to bother you, but are you supposed to be here?" That kind of thing. But when we get to the exact spot, right where we saw him enter, we realize something that makes all three of us stop dead. He stepped into one of the elevators that doesn't work, one of the sealed ones, the gated, closed, unusable elevator shafts. And I don't mean the door was closing and we missed which one. I don't mean he slipped into a working elevator and we got confused. We watched him walk straight into the dead one, straight into where there shouldn't have been an opening at all. Evan immediately starts trying to logic it out. Maybe it's the angle, he says. Maybe he went into the one next to it and we thought, but that doesn't hold up, because if he'd gone into a working elevator, the doors would have been open long enough for us to see them. Those doors took forever to close, and we reached the elevator bank in like 2 or 3 seconds after he entered. There wasn't even time for a full close. Plus, there was no ding, no elevator light, no movement. Just the moment where he should have still been there, and instead he wasn't. The hallway is silent. It's just the 3 of us standing there, staring at a sealed elevator like it's going to explain itself. I remember Noah saying, really quietly, "That's not possible." And the worst part? None of us could even pretend he looked ghostly. He wasn't translucent. He wasn't shimmering. He looked like a completely normal, physical person. Solid. Real. Like you could have bumped into him. Except, he walked into a place a human being cannot walk into. The next day, I see one of the girls from that suite, her name was Tessa, in the lobby, and I'm still unsettled enough that I just go for it. I'm like, "Hey, weird question. Did you guys call maintenance last night? Like late? Around midnight? Plumbing problem? Locked out? Anything?" And the second I say it, her face changes. Not confused, more like wary. Like her brain wants to reject the question, but her body reacts anyway. "No," she says slowly. "We were all asleep. We had early classes." And she can see on my face that I'm not asking casually, so she goes, "Why?" So I tell her. I tell her about the guy crossing their common room and the hallway and the elevator. I keep it as grounded as I can, because even while I'm saying it, I can hear how insane it sounds. Tessa looks freaked out, like properly freaked out. But she tries to be practical too. She says maybe one of her suite mates called someone without telling the others. So she promises she'll ask. Later that day, she gets back to me. "So that's it. That's the whole story. No dramatic ending. No, and then the lights went out. Nothing like that. Just 3 sober, rational college kids watching a man walk into a sealed elevator shaft like it was the most normal thing in the world." And honestly, that's what still gets me. Not the idea of a ghost or a haunting or whatever people want to label it. It's that I saw a person where a person should not have been, and then he was gone. I've never had anything like that happen before or since. But that night still sits in the back of my brain like an unanswered question that refuses to fade. Okay, so first, a little context, because the where matters here. I live just outside Cincinnati, but not the Ohio side. I'm down in northern Kentucky, close enough that if you fly into the Cincinnati airport, you'd actually be landing nearer to my house than most of the city itself. It's one of those regions that's kind of stitched together from a lot of different worlds, different income levels, different neighborhoods, a lot of old history. Civil War history, river history, and the kind of native history you feel more than you can point to on a map. Stories tied to tribes like the Shawnee and Cherokee, mostly passing through or using the land for hunting rather than building big settlements right where I am. And yeah, around here, paranormal stories are basically part of the local seasoning. People talk about haunted spots like it's just normal small talk. I've got my own experiences too. But the thing I'm about to tell you, this one gets under my skin. because I didn't see it myself. And none of the adults I've talked to have seen the main thing either. The only witnesses are teenagers. And look, I get it. If you're the kind of person who hears a bunch of teens said they saw something, and your brain immediately goes, sure, okay, I'm not even mad at you. I've done the same thing. But here's what changed it for me. Once you know a kid well enough, you start noticing their tells. Teenagers can be slick, but most of them don't have the patience to build a consistent lie over time, especially not when friendships fracture and they stop coordinating with each other. If anything, kids accidentally reveal the truth when they don't mean to, because they're still learning how to mask things. So, here we go. My son switched schools and met a group of kids who lived in a nearby trailer community. And before you picture some run-down, busted-up place, no. This one looks, honestly, kind of nice. Clean lots, decent upkeep. It had a basketball court, a playground, long looping streets where kids could ride bikes and mess around without constant traffic, and these open grassy areas where they'd set up little games like it was their own neighborhood park system. My son was thrilled. He wanted to be there all the time. Before long, I became the regular chauffeur. That was my role. Drop him off, pick him up, sometimes take a few of the kids with us on day trips. Movies, hiking, mini golf, whatever. My whole thing as a parent is balance. I want my kid to have experiences, and I want him around friends in more than one environment. And it was during those car rides, windows down, kids talking over each other, that I started hearing it. At first it sounded like typical spooky kid talk, like, oh dude, you know what's in the woods, that kind of thing. But eventually I got upgraded to, all right, mister, is cool, and I started getting the full version of the stories instead of the edited, half-mumbled ones. Now, in this trailer community, there's this oddly placed strip of woods. Not a forest, not some big nature preserve, just this patch. Maybe about an acre wedged between two homes near a bend in the road, and then it narrows into this thin, stretched-out line of trees running behind the trailers for a good quarter-mile. It's also the side closest to the interstate, so I always assumed it was left there as a sound buffer, like nature's little noise wall. One of my son's closest friends, let's call him Mason, lived in one of the trailers right beside that wooded patch. And that matters later. And that's where the stories start getting weirdly consistent. They told me about seeing tall, dark shapes standing at a distance, like a person, but wrong. Not just a dude in a hoodie, more like a silhouette without detail. No face, no clear outline of clothes, just a vertical, humanish absence. And they'd blink and it would be gone. They told me about noises too, growling sometimes, wailing other times. And then the worst one, mimicry. A voice calling from deeper in the trees. Sometimes it sounded like one of their friends, sometimes like somebody's mom, sometimes like a little girl they didn't recognize. One kid swore he heard a baby crying out there, like right past the tree line, like it needed help. But the voice always had the same purpose, drawing them in. And then there were the marks. This is the part where I got a little colder about it, because a couple of them, more than one, showed me scratches and red welts after they'd gone near that patch. And what creeped me out was the pattern they themselves noticed. It tended to happen to the kid who was the weak link that day. Like, the smallest one, the one who was already jumpy, the one who'd been having a rough time at home, or the kid who went in there angry, grieving, stressed out. Like it wasn't random. Like something was picking the easiest target. Naturally, the kids had a name for it. They called it a skinwalker, which, yeah, I'm aware that's not really culturally accurate for Kentucky woods. I think it was just the monster of the moment, the label they had available. But even if the name was wrong, the fear didn't sound pretend. At first, it was all coming from one big friend group, and I told myself, okay, sure, they're hyping each other up. They've created a shared urban legend. Kids do that. But then the group blew up. Teen drama. Friends splitting into enemy camps, backstabbing, the whole exhausting thing. And my son, being who he is, still tried to stay friendly with people on both sides. So I'd hear stories from kids who were no longer speaking to each other. And that's what got me. Because they weren't comparing notes anymore, but they were still describing the same things. Same patch of trees, same distant figure, same voice calling you in, same tension. Then Mason told me something that made my stomach drop. He said he'd seen that same tall, dark, featureless figure inside his house, in the corner of his bedroom. Not outside, not at a distance, in his room, like it had crossed whatever line existed between the woods and everything else. And that was the moment my brain started making connections I didn't want to make. Because once I started paying attention, not to the paranormal stories, but to the adults and the general atmosphere, I noticed something else. It's like that whole place carried a kind of rot. People would move in and suddenly their lives would start unraveling. Cars that were fine would suddenly need expensive repairs. Couples who'd been together for years would split up in brutal, messy ways not long after relocating there. Kids who had never been violent would get mean, like truly aggressive, hair-trigger cruel. Injuries from accidents became common. Constant fighting, constant chaos. And then it escalated. This wasn't gossip, this was real. There was a situation where a teenager stabbed a grown man over something stupid and small. Like, the kind of petty conflict that should have ended with shouting, not blood. And that's the dividing line for me. So that's where I'm stuck. Because I can't prove anything supernatural happened. I didn't watch a faceless thing step between the trees. I didn't hear the voice myself. But I've heard these kids talk, separately, over time, with the kind of fear that doesn't feel performative. And I've watched the pattern of harm and negativity around that little wooded strip. And I keep coming back to the same thought, even though I hate it. What if there's something in that patch of trees? Something that doesn't roam beyond the community lines, but still influences everything inside them. Not like a ghost story where it slams doors and throws plates. More like a pressure, a stain, a slow leak of anger, misfortune, and hostility that just keeps seeping into whoever lives too close to it. I don't know what to call it. I don't even know what I believe. I just know it doesn't feel like a harmless legend anymore. And every time my son mentions that place, I find myself listening harder than I should. Watching the kids' faces, watching their hands, trying to figure out who's genuinely scared and who's trying to pretend they aren't. So this happened about 11 years ago, when I was around 7 or 8. Back then, my family, me, my little brother, and my parents, lived in this old 3-story apartment building. Our place was kind of weird in a way I loved at the time. It had this loft-style upper level inside the apartment, like a half-second floor. My parents used that loft as their bedroom, and my dad sometimes kept paperwork up there on a little desk. Then, below the apartment itself, there was a basement level with storage and a small office where he usually worked because it was quieter. One afternoon, I was upstairs alone in the main apartment, sitting way too close to the TV, playing on my console. Pretty sure it was FIFA, because I remember the exact sound of the ball getting kicked. My mom was out at work, and my dad was down in the basement office with my little brother, doing his usual thing. At some point, I paused the game and wandered into the kitchen to make myself a couple of sandwiches. I'm spreading stuff on bread, half paying attention, when I hear it. My game. Not the menu music, not the crowd noise, the actual thwack of the ball being kicked, like someone had unpaused it and was playing. And the thing is, I was in one of those modes where it's basically just you and the goalkeeper. So every kick is really distinct, you know? I froze for a second, staring at the counter like my brain couldn't decide if it was about to laugh or panic. Then I walked back into the living room and no one was there. No one on the couch, no one standing behind me, nothing. But the game was unpaused. I remember my stomach doing that little drop, like when you miss a step on stairs. And almost immediately after that, I heard something from upstairs, up in the loft. It sounded like papers being pushed around, like someone was rummaging through a stack in a hurry. That loft wasn't huge, so any noise up there felt close, like it was happening right above your head. So I climbed up to check. I was trying to be brave, doing that thing kids do where you act tough but your eyes are too wide. And again, nobody. But my dad's little desk up there, his papers, were totally messed up. Not like one page slid off, like a whole stack had been shuffled and scattered, like someone had flipped through them and left in a rush. At that point, I was properly scared. Not spooky story scared, real kid scared. The kind where you can hear your own heartbeat in your ears. I backed away, came downstairs, and told myself maybe it was just, I don't know, vibration, air, something normal. And then I heard it again, this time from my bedroom area. One of those plastic toy bins I kept all my stuff in. It sounded like someone digging through it, moving toys around, the soft clacking sound of plastic and pieces shifting. I went over there, already feeling like I didn't want to look, and when I pulled the lid back, nothing. No one. Nothing moving. Just the toys sitting there like they'd been innocent the whole time. That was it. I ran. I bolted down to the basement office like my life depended on it, blurted everything out to my dad and my brother at the speed of a fire alarm. My dad barely looked up at first. He was working, and to him it probably sounded like I was making up a dramatic story because I was bored. My brother, of course, hit me with the classic, "You're hearing things." Here's one detail that matters. From our front door, if you stood a certain way, you could see straight into the kitchen counter area. So we walked up to the apartment together, and before we even stepped fully inside, we heard this sharp, metallic sound, like two knives being scraped together. Slow, deliberate. Not a clatter, not an accidental bump, a drawn-out grind, like someone was pressing them together and moving them back and forth. We both stopped dead. We leaned in and peeked through the doorway, and I could see the kitchen counter clearly. No one was there. No hands, no shadow, no movement. But the sound was still coming from right there, like the knives were doing it all by themselves. I looked at my brother, and his face, he heard it too. I could tell instantly, because his expression changed from, "This is dumb," to, "Okay, what is that?" We didn't even discuss it. We just quietly, quickly shut the door like we were sealing something in, and then we ran back down to the basement crying. Both of us. No shame, full panic. We stayed down there until my dad finished his work for the day. Hours. We didn't go back up even once. Later, when my dad finally came upstairs with us, we walked him through everything like we were reenacting a crime scene. Room by room, pointing, explaining. This is where the game unpaused. This is where the papers were. This is the toy bin. He tried to be calm. He did that dad thing where he explains everything with logic, because that's what you do when your kids look like they've seen a ghost. He told us sounds can travel weirdly in old buildings. Pipes can shift. Air pressure can move things. Maybe the controller got bumped, maybe a draft flipped papers. And I wanted to believe him so badly. The weird part is, after that day, nothing like it ever happened again. Not once. No sounds, no rummaging, no unpausing, nothing. We moved out a couple years later, and I've told the story a bunch of times since then. Most friends laugh and say I'm exaggerating or making it up, which, fine, whatever. I get how it sounds. But about a year ago, I brought it up again with my dad, and we actually talked about it seriously. And he told me something I didn't expect. He said he remembered us being absolutely terrified, like genuinely shaken. And he admitted that he didn't want to show fear in front of us, because he felt like if he acted scared, we'd completely fall apart. So he stayed calm on purpose and tried to give us explanations, even if he wasn't fully sure himself. And then he said something that stuck with me. He said the reason a tiny part of him believes it is because every single time I've told it, over the years, the details never changed. Same sequence, same sounds, same places. Like it was burned into my memory. And honestly, it is. To this day, I still don't know what caused any of it. I don't claim it was something supernatural. I don't even know what I think it was. I just know what I heard. And I know I wasn't the only one who heard it. Okay. I want to start by saying this. I've never been the ghost story person. Like, I'm usually the one who nods politely and thinks there's probably a logical explanation for that. I've always leaned toward the sciencey, grounded side of things. Not in a cold way, more like, I want to believe, but I need something to happen to me directly. Otherwise, it's just a story. So here's what happened. On my dad's side, there's this old family house. The kind of place that holds a lot of history in the walls, you know? Years ago, my grandmother, everyone called her Noni, not Nana, got really sick. Hospice came in, and they set up a bed for her on the first floor, right there near the front living room. She passed peacefully in that house. And after that? Nothing spooky. No footsteps, no lights flickering, no eerie dreams. If anything, the house just felt quiet. Sad sometimes, but normal. Fast forward. My dad inherited the place and moved back after living far away for a long time. He brought one cat with him, an orange one named Miso, and later adopted a second, this fluffy gray sweetheart named Juniper. Over time, I started rebuilding my relationship with him. It wasn't easy. We had history, complicated stuff, but we were trying. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like there was something to mend. Then this summer, everything changed fast. His health took a sharp turn. Suddenly, he couldn't move around safely, and he was a fall risk, so we set up a bed downstairs for him. Same general area where Noni's hospice bed had been years ago. It wasn't planned as some symbolic thing. It was just the safest spot. And then, just a few days ago, he was gone. He didn't pass in the house. He passed in the hospital. The timeline still feels unreal. He was home the day before, and then within one day we were in the ER, and by early the next morning he was gone. Just like that. Like the world quietly slipped its hands out from under me. Since then, I've been going over to the house every day, sorted paperwork, trying to be responsible, feeding the cats, making sure they're okay. The first time I walked in after it happened, it was brutal. I still do this thing where I say, "Hey, Dad," when I enter. I know I won't hear anything back. I'm not doing it because I expect a response. It's just, Me being open. Me letting myself talk into the silence because I don't know what else to do. The first evening I went over, nothing happened. I cried everywhere, like ugly crying. At the foot of his bed, in the hallway, in rooms I didn't even realize held so much weight. Before I left, I lay down on his bed for a while, and both cats climbed up and tucked in close. That part was actually comforting, like the only thing in the house that made any sense. Then the next night, this is the night I can't stop replaying. It was around 8 p.m. I went over again, did what I needed to do. More papers, more little tasks, that weird numb autopilot you get when you're grieving. And when I finished, I did the same thing I did the night before. I lay down on his bed. Miso hopped up. Juniper followed. They settled in like they'd been waiting for it. I was texting my mom, just trying to keep myself anchored to something normal. And then, it happened. Out of nowhere, this full-body chill slammed into me, but I did. And within seconds, like immediate, both cats reacted. Both heads snapped up at the same time, like a synchronized movement. Their ears went forward, eyes wide, locked on something that wasn't me. It was so fast and so sharp it startled me, and I'm already sitting there with my skin crawling. That was the part that hit me hardest. Because chills, okay, fine. Bodies do weird things. Grief does weird things. But two animals reacting instantly, together, like something just entered the room. That's not as easy to brush off. So we're all lying there, me frozen, the cat staring, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm feeling. I wasn't screaming or panicking. I didn't feel like I was in danger. It was more like shock. Like my brain was scrambling to find a label for something it didn't have a file for. And I started talking. Softly at first. Just talking into the air like a fool, except it didn't feel foolish in the moment. I said something like, "Dad, I love you. I miss you so much." And then my mind jumped and I thought, what if it's Noni? Because she passed here. And for a second I didn't know who I was even addressing, so I just said, "Okay, whoever this is, I feel you." The chill didn't immediately go away. It hung on, and the air in the room felt occupied. That's the only word I can think of. Like when someone's standing behind you and you don't hear them, but your body still knows. The cats stayed focused too, like they were tracking a presence more than a sound. After a bit, Juniper eventually got up and wandered toward the water bowl area, and Miso relaxed again like he decided the situation was acceptable. But my body was still buzzing with that chill, like it had left a fingerprint on me. I finally sat up, because at that point I felt unsettled. Not terrified, just shaken. Like I'd stepped over a line I didn't know existed. I started gathering a few things to take out to my truck, and I still had goosebumps outside. Outside, in the fresh air. It didn't make sense. Then I realized I'd forgotten something inside, and when I went back in, I'll be honest, I moved faster. My heart was thumping, and part of me was half expecting to see, I don't even know what. A shape, a shadow, anything. Nothing happened. No dramatic moment. I just said, "All right, good night," like I always do now, and I left. But I left different. Because I couldn't explain it. I couldn't rationalize it. And I'm the kind of person who usually can. When I got home, I told my wife immediately. And while I'm talking, our 4-month-old is staring at me with these huge, unblinking eyes, like she's completely captivated. Like she's listening too. It was actually kind of sweet. This tiny little person just locked into my voice while I'm trying not to sound insane. Tomorrow I'm going to tell my mom and my sister. I already texted them, like, something happened. I can't explain it. I need to tell you in person. Because I don't even know how to say it without sounding like I'm trying to convince myself. But I think, honestly, I'm not a skeptic anymore. I don't know if it was my dad. I don't know if it was Noni. I don't even know if I have the right to label it at all. I just know the room changed. My body knew. The cats knew. And for a moment, in the middle of all this grief, it felt like the house held more than just silence. So this really happened to me when I was about 16, maybe 17, in the woods of Leelanau County, Michigan. My family and I were up north on vacation, staying in that dreamy, everything smells like pine and lake water part of the world. One afternoon, we went to visit a family friend. Her name was Marianne, who lived way out in the middle of this dense forest, like the kind where the trees feel taller because the light can barely get through. What I remember first is the road. When we turned onto it, the pavement just ended. It became this crunchy gravel road that looked like it had been carved into the woods a long time ago and never updated. And I remember staring down it as we drove, watching it slope downhill, then curve left and disappear into the trees, like it was leading somewhere it didn't want to explain. A few hours go by. Adults are talking, everyone's relaxed, and I'm bored in that very teenage way where curiosity starts feeling like an itch under your skin. So I'm like, I'm just going to take a quick walk and see where that road goes. And I need you to understand, I grew up outside Chicago. I wasn't a woods kid. And up there, people casually mention things like black bears the way they talk about squirrels. I remember feeling nervous the whole time, like I was pretending I was brave, but my body didn't believe me. Still, I went. When I reached the top of the hill, it was actually kind of beautiful. Birds were chirping, frogs were going off somewhere, like the whole forest had its own soundtrack. It didn't feel threatening exactly, just alive. Too alive. I started walking down the hill, and to calm myself down, I started whistling that little 4-note tune from the Hunger Games. You know the one. It's simple, kind of haunting, but familiar. It made me feel like I had company, even if it was just my own noise. I got about halfway down the hill when everything changed. The birds stopped. The frogs stopped. Not gradually, not one by one. It was like someone hit a mute button. The whole forest just folded into silence so hard it felt physical. And immediately, my stomach dropped because I'd heard before, somewhere, sometime, that when the woods go quiet like that, it can mean there's a predator nearby. And I remember thinking, okay, this is the part where I turn around. But I didn't. I kept going because I was stubborn and curious and 16, and I wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't scared of a road. I kept whistling as I walked, like if I stayed casual, the forest would stay casual too. Then, clear as day, I heard it. The whistle. Answering me. Perfectly. Same 4 notes. Same spacing. Same pitch. Like a mirror. And what messed me up wasn't just that it repeated the tune. It was how human it sounded. Not like a bird mimicking. Not like something distant and natural. It sounded like someone was right there in the trees, listening, waiting for me to do it again. Like it understood the game and was playing along. I stopped dead, just froze and stared at this patch of woods off the side of the road where the sound seemed to come from. And in that moment, I had this horrible, cold awareness that I was not alone, and whatever was there didn't want to be seen. I didn't call out. I didn't whistle again. I didn't even breathe normally. The second Marianne's house came back into view, I stopped pretending. I sprinted. Full panic sprint. Gravel slipping under my shoes. Lungs burning. Just running like something might follow me if I didn't. I got inside, and I swear I didn't leave anyone's eyesight for the rest of the night. I hovered around my family like a little kid, even though I was practically grown, because I couldn't shake that feeling that something had been watching me from the woods, and it knew I was there. To this day, I still don't know what it was. Could it have been a person messing with me? Maybe. Could it have been some animal mimicking? Possibly. But the way the forest went silent, the way that whistle came back so exact and so intentional, it still makes my skin crawl when I think about it. And honestly, the scariest part is that either answer is terrifying, because if it was paranormal, that's obvious nightmare fuel. But if it was a real person out there, just standing in the trees, watching a teenager walk alone down a forest road and deciding to whistle back, that might be worse. So, I was 19 when I started dating this guy. Let's call him Eli. He lived at his mom's place, but he had this kind of almost apartment set up in the basement. Not fully separate, but separate enough that it felt like our own little world down there. Back then, I was apprenticing at a tattoo shop, which is just a fancy way of saying I was working my butt off and still somehow always broke. So once I started staying over, it turned into this routine where I'd crash at Eli's place. And by crash, I mean basically move in without officially being invited to. It was a real bed too, which felt luxurious compared to the random couches I'd been bouncing between. The only problem was, his mom, Mary Ann, was not exactly thrilled about me being there all the time. She wasn't mean, exactly, but she had that vibe where you can feel someone disapproving through walls. So I got really good at being invisible. Quiet footsteps, doors clicked shut gently, no leaving cups around, the whole thing. And honestly, I could have pulled off the ghost roommate act perfectly, if the house wasn't designed in the most inconvenient way imaginable. Because there was only one bathroom in the entire house. Eli's space was on the bottom floor, but the bathroom was all the way up on the second floor, right in the little hallway between Mary Ann's room and the room of Eli's younger sister, Nora. And we kept weird hours. I'd get home late from the shop, Eli would stay up with me, we'd watch something stupid, snack, talk, and suddenly it would be 2 or 3 in the morning like it happened in a blink. So this one night, we're finally about to go to sleep and I realize, oh no, I have to pee. And I'm thinking, it's fine, everyone's asleep. I can ninja my way up there and back down and nobody will ever know I exist. I start up the basement stairs, those old wooden stairs that complain about every single step you take. Like, the house wasn't creaky, it was dramatic. Every step sounded like a whispered accusation. I make it through the dark kitchen, past the living room, and up the next staircase toward the bathroom. I'm half asleep, eyes down, just watching my feet so I don't trip. And then, I feel it. This sudden cold. Not like, oh, the AC kicked on. Not like a draft. Like I walked into a refrigerated aisle at the grocery store. Like the air changed around me. I stop mid-step, and I actually remember thinking, what is that? Because it was so sharp and immediate it didn't make sense. I lift my head, squinting into the dark, and a couple steps higher, right at the top of the staircase, I see someone. A little girl, sitting cross-legged in the corner, tucked back like she'd been placed there on purpose. Long black hair, hanging forward so I couldn't see her face. And my first thought, my only normal thought was, oh, that's Nora. Because Nora had hair just like that, same length, same dark color. And I'm immediately like, oh my God, did I wake her up? Is she sick? Is she sleepwalking? And also, please don't let Mary Ann wake up. So I whisper, really softly, Nora? Nothing. She doesn't move, doesn't look up, just sits there. And I'm trying to be calm because the rational explanation is kid got up in the night. So I climb the last few steps and crouch down in front of her, still whispering her name like I'm trying not to spook a cat. And she still doesn't react. That's when my stomach starts doing that slow drop thing. Because even if a kid is half asleep, they usually do something. They shift, they mumble, they blink, anything. So I glance over my shoulder toward Mary Ann's room. Her door is cracked open, and I can see her in bed, asleep, completely out. Then, without even wanting to, I look down the hall at Nora's room. The door is open just enough that I can see the bed. And there she is, Nora. And I swear, in that moment my brain just stopped working. Because I'm crouched in front of a little girl who looks like Nora. And Nora is also very obviously asleep in her bed. So I turn back, and the girl in the corner is still there, right where she was, hair still hiding her face, not moving, not breathing in a way I can see, just present. And it's so quiet that the silence feels loud. I didn't scream. I didn't say anything. I didn't even think properly. I just popped up so fast it felt like my whole body got yanked by a string. And I turned and practically flew down the stairs. I'm going down those steps like I'm late for the last train out of town. I get maybe halfway down and suddenly, the cold is gone. It doesn't fade. It doesn't gradually warm up. It's like someone took a heavy coat off my shoulders in one pull. I stop and look back up the staircase. Dark. Empty. No girl. No shape. No movement. Nothing. And I remember standing there thinking, absolutely not. I'm not going back up there. So I go straight to Eli, shake him awake, and I'm whisper yelling like, I need you to come with me, right now. I saw something upstairs. He's groggy, confused, trying to blink himself into reality, and I'm just standing there with my heart doing gymnastics. And here's the part that's almost funny now, except it wasn't funny then. I didn't use the bathroom. Nope. I put on my shoes and walked to a 24-hour gas station a few blocks away to use their bathroom instead. Alone, in the middle of the night, like that was somehow the safer option. In daylight, I can admit that was a ridiculous choice. But in that moment, I was like, I will take my chances with strangers and parking lots. I am not going back up those stairs. The next morning, I finally tell Eli the whole story. I'm trying to laugh it off, like, okay, this is going to sound crazy, but... And I get to the part where I'm walking upstairs and I feel that sudden cold. And Eli's face changes, like, instantly. He goes completely serious, looks me dead in the eye, and goes, wait, you felt cold on the stairs? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, really quietly, and then you saw a little girl sitting at the top? And I just stared at him, because that wasn't a guess. That wasn't me leading him. He said it like he already knew the next line. And I didn't even ask what he meant. I didn't want details. I didn't want a backstory. I didn't want confirmation. I just said something like, cool, great, love that, in the most unconvincing voice on earth. And after that, I made sure I used the bathroom before I ever came over. Every single time. Because some lessons don't need to be taught twice. So, I'm not really someone who dreams. Or if I do, they slip away the second I wake up, like mist. And when I do remember something, it usually feels less like a dream and more like I accidentally went somewhere, like an unplanned out-of-body thing. I never try to do it. It just happens. But this time, this dream was different. It was so real it honestly scared me a little. It was vivid, sharp, and I felt completely awake, like my senses were switched on. All of a sudden, I'm back in my hometown. I'm standing in the street in front of my very first childhood house, the one with the uneven walkway and the big old tree that always dropped leaves everywhere. And I remember looking around like, oh, right, here I am, like I'd been dropped there on purpose. Then I start walking, just a short stretch, maybe a couple houses down, to this place where an older woman used to live. When I was a kid, I knew her well. She always felt safe, gentle, the kind of person who made you feel seen without even trying. When I get there, the house is buzzing with activity. People are hauling boxes and dragging furniture, and everything looks dusty, like the whole place has been shut up for years. It's hard to tell if they're renovating or clearing it out, but it's definitely being turned inside out. I stop one of the movers and I say, "Hey, I used to know the woman who lived here. Would it be all right if I stepped inside and looked around for a minute?" And without hesitation, they just go, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." So I walk up the front steps and go in. Inside, the living room is lit in that pale, washed-out way old houses sometimes are. And there are a couple people standing around talking like it's no big deal. And then I notice this worn-out armchair off to the side, kind of saggy, like it's held a lot of years. There's a cat sitting on it. Naturally, I'm like, "Oh, hi, sweetheart," and I walk over to pet it. But the second I step in front of the chair, something happens. I feel this pressure in my chest, except it's not just pressure. It's like a pulling, like someone grabbed the front of my shirt and yanked. I look down, and I can actually see my shirt pulled outward in front of me, like the fabric is being tugged. But I can tell that's just how my brain is translating the sensation. The real feeling is inside my body, deep and intense. And then, before I can react, I'm being pulled. Not gently, not like I'm choosing to move, like I'm being dragged by an invisible force that has decided I don't get a vote. I spin around and I'm pulled up the stairs, faster than I can think. I can't fight it. I can't grab the railing. All I can do is go with it, heart pounding, trying to understand what's happening. And then it stops. I'm in a bedroom, and on the bed, lying there like she's resting, is the older woman I used to know. Only, she's not exactly solid. She's kind of translucent, misty around the edges, like she's made of light and fog. But I know it's her. I recognize her immediately, the way you recognize someone you loved as a child even after decades. I walk to the side of the bed and kneel down, and I say, without even questioning why I'm saying it, "Hi, Maribel, how are you?" That's not her real name, but in that moment, that's what comes out of my mouth. Like my mind is reaching for the right person, but grabbing the wrong label. She looks at me and smiles, a real smile, warm, familiar, and she says, very calmly, "I think I'm ready to go." And something in me just softens, like I suddenly understand what this is, why I'm there. So I tell her, "If you feel ready, you can go. It's okay. We'll be all right." She smiles again, closes her eyes, and she fades. Not like a scary vanishing, more like a candle being blown out. Gentle. I stand up, still stunned, and then I feel that pulling sensation again, stronger, and it yanks me right out into the hallway. And then I'm pulled into another bedroom. This time she's standing there, not on the bed, just there, like she managed one more step. She looks at me and says something short, like an afterthought, like a final little message. I wish I could tell you what it was, but I can't remember it. It's like trying to hold on to words spoken underwater, but the feeling of it stayed. It felt like a PS, a last little add-on before she left for good. And then she fades again, and that's when I wake up. When I woke up, I was shaken in that quiet way, like you've just been part of something huge, but the room around you is ordinary and still, and I couldn't stop thinking about her. about the house, about how real it felt. And the weirdest part? Maribel wasn't her name. I knew that as soon as I was awake, but I also couldn't remember her real name at all, no matter how hard I tried. It was right there and totally unreachable. So I texted my uncle, because he would remember. I asked him, what was her name again? The older woman who lived a few houses down from our old place? He replied with her actual name, and then he added something that hit me right in the chest. She really loved you, you know. And I just sat there staring at my phone, because suddenly the whole thing felt connected, like whatever that was, dream, projection, spiritual moment. Maybe she really was ready. Maybe she just needed someone she trusted to tell her it was okay to let go. And maybe, somehow, our connection from when I was little, mixed with whatever strange doorway I sometimes slip through, is how I ended up there. Not to be scared, not to explore, just to help her leave. So, this happened a little over 8 years ago, and I've had my fair share of weird, paranormal moments. But this one still sits right at the front of my mind like it happened yesterday. At the time, my partner, Eli, had just left for a long stretch of military training, and I was stuck in this awkward in-between period where I couldn't move with him yet. So I stayed with a family friend for a couple months, tucked into their spare bedroom, trying to keep my head down and just get through that temporary little limbo. And honestly, because I knew it wasn't permanent, my life kind of took on this strange, whatever works energy. I just needed enough money to keep my bills paid, so when the job I'd once loved started turning into a daily stress fest, I quit. I ended up following my friend Marin into this industrial sewing place. Big machines, heavy canvas, the kind of space that smells like fabric dust and oil. It was actually fun. Super flexible too. You could show up and never know who'd be working at the other stations that day. Now, the day this story really begins, the place was unusually empty. It was just me and Marin at the big cutting table in the middle, laying out canvas and measuring pieces for the day. We got on this topic, those oddly specific things that scare you. Not the obvious horror movie stuff, more like the smaller, personal, immediate nope triggers. The kind of thing that makes your stomach drop and your brain go, yeah, I'm leaving, immediately. And at some point I told Naren one of mine. I said one of the creepiest sounds in the world, to me, is slow scratching. Not frantic scratching, like a branch tapping or a pet pawing at a door. I mean, slow, deliberate scratching. Like something is doing it on purpose. Like it's not trying to get in so much as it's making sure you know it's there, and that it has all the time in the world. And because I'm dramatic, I did a little demonstration. I dragged my fingernails down the rough surface of the cutting table. Slow, steady. Then, right at the end, I snapped my fingers down in a quick little swipe to finish it off. Like punctuation. Marin's whole face twisted up in this look like, please never do that again. So I knew it landed. We laughed it off, shook it away, and went on with our shift. That night, I was in the spare bedroom at my family friend's house, stretched out on the bed reading. My dog, Rook, was curled beside me. Rook was a big, solid dude, half lab, half bulldog, pitch black, with that heavy face that made him look like he should be guarding a gate somewhere. But he was an absolute marshmallow. He wasn't protective. He wasn't tough. He didn't bark. And when I say he didn't bark, I mean it. The only sounds I'd ever gotten from him were these little whiny, please noises when treats were involved, or a dramatic huff if he felt ignored. So when I heard him growl, really growl, my whole body went cold. It wasn't a warning grumble. It was deep and heavy, like it came from somewhere in his ribs. I felt the vibration of it through the mattress. I looked over and his hackles were up, fully raised, every hair along his back standing. I reached out, put my hand on him, and followed his stare. He was locked onto the bedroom door. And then it happened. A slow, Intentional scratching started at the very top of the door. Not near the knob, not near the bottom like an animal would. From the top, like something tall, or something that didn't care about anatomy, was dragging nails downward at an almost leisurely pace. And it just kept going. It felt endless, like the sound had weight, like it was being done for me. And then it stopped, and finished with a sharp, quick swipe at the bottom, like a final little flourish. I swear my brain stalled out. I sat there frozen, my hand hovering on Rook's bristled fur, not even breathing right. He stayed rigid, staring at the door like if it opened, he was going to turn into a different animal entirely. I tried so hard to rationalize it. Pipes, old house, something settling, anything. But it was too on the nose, too perfectly timed, too specific. Marin didn't know where I lived. No one at work did. My family friend and their spouse were sweet, normal people who went to bed early and absolutely weren't the "let's terrify our guest with door scratching" type. And even if they were, how would they have known the exact thing I'd talked about at work that day? And there's the other detail. Rook wasn't faking anything. That dog was ready. Whatever he thought was on the other side of that door, he didn't like it. Not even a little. Eventually, the house stayed quiet. The sound didn't come back. And at some point, somehow, I slept. But it was the kind of sleep where you wake up feeling like you didn't rest, you just blacked out with one eye open. The next day, about half an hour into our shift, me and Marin were at the cutting table again, laying out canvas, and I finally said, "Okay, I have to tell you what happened last night." I started to say, "Do you remember our conversation yesterday about..." And before I could even finish, I saw Marin's hand lift toward my hoodie collar, which immediately threw me because we weren't touchy people at all. We were the type of friends who could work side by side for 10 hours and show affection exclusively through sarcasm. So I went still, watching him, and his face kind of tightened up like he was concentrating. And he goes, really quietly, "What are those?" I didn't know what he meant, so I pulled out my phone, flipped to the front camera, and looked. 3 red scratch marks ran down the side of my neck, straight from just under my ear down toward my collarbone. 3 lines. Thin, clean. Not something you get from absent-mindedly scratching in your sleep. And definitely not from Rook. His nails were thick, blunt, like little chalky stubs. If he'd done that, it would have looked completely different. I just stared at my own reflection for a second, feeling my stomach drop in slow motion. Because suddenly, it wasn't just a creepy sound at the door anymore. It had moved from something outside to something close enough to touch me. So, I still don't know what it was that scratched the door that night. But whatever it was, it felt like it had been around, and it felt like it had been listening.